to the October 22nd meeting of the Independence Planning Commission. Before we begin our meeting, let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our procedure for each case tonight is as follows. The applicant for each case will be recognized to speak on behalf of their case, followed by anyone else in attendance that wishes to speak on that case in favor first. Then, those who are in opposition or who simply have questions on the case will be given an opportunity to speak. Then if there was opposition or questions from the public, the applicant will be allowed a rebuttal period to address those concerns or questions. Once the applicant is finished, the chair will declare the public hearing portion of the case closed, and further comment from the public will not be recognized. At this point, the commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss the merits of the case with one another, and during that discussion, the commission reserves the right to ask questions of all parties concerned. And then finally, the commission will render a decision in the case. Because tonight we have a lot of folks here. The first case we're going to swear people in, but we're going to swear them in for the case that is at matter at hand, not a blanket swearing in. Okay? So, staff, can we have the first item?
Yes, Cal Lowenstein requests to rezone the property at 2805 South Sterling Avenue from R6 single family to R18 PUD, which is medium density residential planned unit development, and approve a preliminary development plan. If you remember, this case was continued by the Planning Commission from its September 24th meeting to tonight to provide the applicant an opportunity to work with staff to revise the plan, taking into consideration issues discussed at that meeting. And we'll go through these slides fairly quickly because everybody's somewhat familiar with this. The vicinity map shows the location of the site. It's on the east side of South Sterling, north of 29th Street. This is the zoning for the area. The properties to the north and east are already zoned R18 PUD. Much of the land here is zoned R6, which is the light color, light yellow, and then R12, which is the darker yellow color. The future land use plan shows residential neighborhoods for the entire area. This is the aerial photograph of the site, and which is in the oval. There's an apartment building to the north, a triplex to the east, and a single family home to the south. Okay, this is the original site plan that was reviewed at the last meeting. Here the building had an east-west orientation with two driveways extending from the site to South Sterling. The front elevation is shown, two-story building with the single car garages on the bottom floor. Based upon issues discussed at the last meeting, the applicant revised the site plan as follows. He rotated the building to the north and shifted it south, placing parking on the north side of the site. He consolidated the previous two driveways into a single wider drive onto South Sterling Avenue to access the parking area on the north side of the lot. And provided 9 outdoor spaces in addition to the 3 garage spaces for the total of 12 spaces, which is 4 per unit. However, staff believes the number could be reduced to 7 or even 6 outdoor spaces, thus providing 3.33 or 3 spaces per unit. The design of the building remains unchanged. And then we'll go through the pictures of the neighborhood real quick here. Here we're looking east across Sterling into the site. From street level, the property has a rise of about 8 feet. This is another view of the site showing the apartment building. And this is a property to the south of the applicant site. Here's some a shot looking south down Sterling. And these next three slides are residential properties across the street from the applicant site. And this is looking north up Sterling toward 23rd Street. And this is the apartment building that is directly north of the site. It has 10 or 11 units, I think. And then staff recommends approval of this rezoning request and the accompanying amended preliminary development plan with the following conditions. While South Sterling Avenue is classified as an arterial by the city's thoroughfare plan and thus requires a building setback of 50 feet, the proposed building should have a similar setback to other buildings along the street. 2 is the property to the south remains zoned R6 single family. A buffer screen comprised of fencing and landscaping must be provided along the south property line in accordance with city code. The final building plans must utilize design elements common with other residential structures on the corridor. These elements include roof forms and facade materials. 4 is reduce the amount of outdoor parking spaces from 9 to 7 for a total of 10 spaces for this duplex. That number includes 3 garage spaces. And then the width of the area between the north side of the building should be reduced by at least 2.5 feet to increase the building setback along the south property line to 7 feet and increase the depth of the outdoor parking spaces to 18 feet. And the applicant is here also.
Stuart, when you said on number 5, between the north side of the building and what?
Okay, if we look at the proposed site plan, there's an area between the building and then the parking and the drive. And it looks like it's kind of where the driveway, there's a gap between where the building is and where the parking lot and the drive is. Apparently, unfortunately, it doesn't show up very well on this slide. But that could be reduced a couple of feet to give some more space on the south and then on the north. You can see it on your little drawing.
Yeah, it's just as hard to read.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
You can see the gray box, that is the building. And then you've got these, it looks like sort of like sidewalks that go between the building and then the drive aisle. That's the area that we're talking about, reducing that area.
So what's the width now?
I can't really tell from this well, it's written on there. I can't read it. I think it's somewhere around 5 feet.
How much? Inches? Oh, no, this. So you're suggesting reducing that, even though is that supposed to be landscaped or not? Is that a requirement?
Well, I think it's a sidewalk and landscaping both. Perhaps the applicant can provide that.
Okay.
Answer that
All
question.
right. Would the applicant please come forward? And sir, make sure, 1, you speak it right into the microphone, and 2, that you give us your name and address, please.
My name is Carl Lawrenson,
I
9625.
don't think he's been sworn in.
You are correct. Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth before this commission? If so, please answer, I do.
I do.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm sorry for the interruption. Go ahead.
My name is Carl Lawrenson, 9625 Northeast Cherry Court, Kansas City, Missouri, 64155.
Okay. Do you want to explain to us?
From the last meeting, we had some discussions about moving the building further behind and creating ample parking space. So that's what we've done. And then we created like a small circle where the drivers can turn around within the parking space in order to exit the property. So they won't need to back out. And we talked about the trash removal. So every unit will have their own roller, trash cart, and that's what we have agreed to do.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Lowenson?
I do. The driveway, you would go in and turn around in the back of where the building, and then come back out the same driveway?
Yes, let's say this is the building you're driving. Here, you go around the circle to go to whatever
can't
you
come
need.
out.
You can't just come out immediately, but if you want to come out, you need to go around the same circle to exit. Yeah,
Same driveway,
yeah.
okay.
It's
Yeah,
just
but-
one driveway.
Yeah, Mr. Lowenson, there's no real circle drive here. If you look at the aerial there, or the drawing, you can see it's just a parking lot on the north side of the building. There's not really a true circle.
There's ample space for the cars to turn around.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Does city staff agree that there's ample space to turn around?
Well, it's like any other parking lot. You've got enough width there for a two-way drive and then parking spaces. It's not really any different than any other type of project. It's two-way driving, and you pull in to space and then back out and go out to the street. They've actually provided more spaces, even at 3 spaces per unit, than most spaces provide.
So the reason.
Well, it is a 3-bedroom.
But
Each-
we only require 1 space per unit by code, and they're providing at least 3 per unit.
Okay. I don't think that's a smart move, but what do I know?
But each unit has a garage,
Yes.
right?
Well, it has a garage, right, but what if everybody's there? What if everybody has a car, 3 bedrooms, 3 units, possibly 9 drivers, and they're taking away 2 parking spaces? For why, I don't understand. Is there a reason for that?
Well, you're covering the property with almost trying to cut back on the impervious surface. You look at the drawing that's provided, and 2/3 of it's covered by building or parking, so you want to try to trim that back a little bit and, provide some landscaping there.
Okay, well, I mean, as long as it meets code, it's none of my business, right? So I just can imagine everybody having a car, and the trash guy pulls in, or the UPS guy pulls in, and then he has to back out.
Well, as far as the trash guy, the dumpsters the rollouts are gonna be right along Sterling. They're not gonna pull in here. As far as the UPS goes, is that really any different than pulling into somebody's driveway to turn around?
No, it's not, but I just would hope we would strive for better than the same old, but,
It's really 10 plus 3.
yeah.
10 spaces plus 3 garage.
No, for 9, for a total of 10, because there's 3 in the garage. Anyway, does anybody else have any questions of Mr. Lowenson? Okay, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. A show of hands, is there anyone here to speak in favor of this case? Okay. Show of hands, is there anyone here who has questions or who is opposed? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing portion of the case. And, okay, then make a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
in the matter of case number 19-125-01, rezoning from R6 to R18 PUD and approval of a preliminary development plan for 2805 South Sterling Avenue, I move for approval pursuant to the recommendations of staff.
I second.
Okay, Commissioner Preston moved and Commissioner Wiley second. Unless there's any objections, we're ready for the vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes,
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner McLean,
Yes.
Chairman Ashbaugh.
Yes. Case number 19-125-01, rezoning from R6 to R18 PUD, and approval of preliminary development plat for 2805 South Sterling has been approved. Okay, our next case. Before the city staff reads the case. Yeah. Who is here to speak? Who is here that thinks they might want to speak on this case? Raise a hand, show of hands, please. Even if you're not sure, thinks the spirit might move you. Okay. The folks raising their hand, would they please stand and be sworn in? And remember, this doesn't mean you have to speak. It just means that you're sworn in, so you have to tell the truth. Okay, those are standing. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth before this commission? If so, answer, I do. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, we're ready.
Okay. This is case 19-12502. Van Trust Real Estate LLC requests to rezone the property at 2700 and 2800 South Little Blue Parkway from I-1 Industrial and R6 Single Family Residential to BP PUD Business Park Planned Unit Development, and requests approval of a preliminary plat and preliminary development plan. So looking here at this first slide, this is our vicinity map where you see the red circle that's about a couple blocks north of Artie Mize Road between Little Blue Parkway and Jackson being there on the left and Little Blue Parkway on the right. This is the zoning map. The property in question is within the red outlined area. Most of the property is currently zoned R6, single-family residential. The little tail on the west is actually already zoned, or is zoned I-1 industrial. The surrounding zonings include undeveloped residential district to the north, zoned R6 PUD. You have additional properties, the remainder of what was once the runway at Independence Memorial Airport, zoned R6. To the east, across Little Blue Parkway, is another field that's zoned R6, although there is some commercial there up on the far northeast. And to the west, we have existing I-1 industrial zoning to the west of this property, between it and the Brymar subdivision, that's been zoned industrial since at least 1980. This is the future land use plan, which envisions business park uses for the area. Business park uses include uses like manufacturing, transportation, and wholesaling, office and research facilities, limited retail, and services. This is an aerial photograph. You can still see the remnants of the runway there very clearly. That was Independence Memorial Airport. And you can see this area is mostly fields under cultivation. The warehouse distribution development that's proposed will consist of 2 lots on 36.3 acres sitting between Little Blue Parkway and Jackson Drive. The northern lot will have 321,980 square foot building on it. The southern lot is proposed to have a 236,080 square foot building. The development is speculative. The buildings will be constructed to provide the city with an inventory of marketable warehouse spaces. Given the limited number of median crossings that are permitted along the little Blue Parkway, the driveways along the right-of-way will be right-in and right-out only. Depicted here are 3 driveways. Public Works is preferring there will be only 2 accesses along the parkway, which should be reflected in the final development plans. Northbound, so the way circulation would work, northbound Little Blue Parkway traffic would take a left at R.D. Mize and enter in the west side of this development from Jackson Drive, and then there would be at least 2 ways to get out for the truck traffic to go back southbound, back on the Little Blue Parkway. So this is the overall site plan, and this gives a clearer view of the more northern building, and this one the more southern of the 2 buildings. Next is the landscaping plans. This is for the northern property. The applicant will provide a continuous evergreen screen and other plantings along the northern edge to serve as a high-impact screen in the buffer from the neighboring undeveloped residential zone. Again, they will also provide such screen along the southern edge of the development. In the final development plan, they will also need to provide a cross-section of the berms that will be topped with trees in the setbacks along the rights-of-way, the lengths of the properties that are to screen the public right-of-ways from the docking areas, or being able to see the docking and truck parking areas. Open spaces, of course, and shrubbery will be provided as shown on these preliminary development plans here. The building's exterior material will consist of precast tilt-up panels. It's envisioned the walls would be a blue-gray color. In addition, they will provide some masonry elements and treatments around the ends of the buildings where the entrances are to enter and exit them. The buildings long sides will be dominated by docks, of course, with multiple garage doors, both on the long north and south sides of the 2 structures. This slide is the preliminary plat, which is also part of this application as well. I'd also like to point out there was a typo in the floodplain section of your report where it talked about the lowest adjacent grade. If you thought that distance was kind of great, it was not supposed to be 12 feet, it's supposed to be 12 inches. So.
What page is that on?
I think it's the 3rd page.
Third.
Yeah, top of the 3rd page. Okay. Real quickly, I will go through a tour of the area, photographs of the area. Here I was standing on the sidewalk next to Little Blue Parkway, looking to the northwest across the property. That's Prairie Landing up on the hill there, or part of it. This is looking north up the Little Blue Parkway. And then this is what lies to the east across Little Blue Parkway. And this is southward toward Artie Mize Road. And this is looking southwest onto the property as well as across the adjacent property to the south. This is Jackson Drive. I'm looking due north on Jackson Drive. Jackson Drive is sort of going off to the northeast here. And this is looking southeast across Jackson Drive toward the Brymar addition off in the distance by the tree line. And this is looking into the property. This is that little wing that was on the west side of the property that is zoned I-1 industrial right now. This is the drainage ditch or creek that runs through the property. And you can see where that drainage area is. And this is looking east out across the property, back toward Little Blue Parkway. Staff recommends approval of this rezoning, PUD, and preliminary plat and preliminary development plan, but without the requirement for the turquoise color treatment that was mentioned in the list of conditions. However, including masonry and other treatments. And I'm ready to take any questions you may have.
So no turquoise treatments, just the masonry one, correct?
At least not turquoise color.
Okay. Is the applicant here?
It broke.
Good evening. My name is Grant Harrison with Van Trust Real Estate, 4900 Main Street, Kansas City, Missouri. Grant Harrison, Van Trust Real Estate, 4900 Main Street, Kansas City, Missouri. I'm here tonight representing the developer and hopefully owner of the property. We do want to thank you all for your time tonight and staff's work to date. We spent a lot of time on this. Really do appreciate staff's recommendation on approval. We do agree with all the conditions. As previously mentioned, we will be eliminating one of the 3 curb cuts, the middle one on Little Blue Parkway. This will allow us to better screen off Little Blue Parkway and improve parking internally. We will also be working with staff to enhance colors on the elevations and introducing a stone or masonry material to really target the entry points of the corners. I'm going to go through some quick slides, a lot of which has already been touched upon. As we know, this is about a 36-acre site, generally north of R.D. Mize Road, in between Little Blue Parkway and Jackson Drive. This is a 2-building complex, totaling about 565,000 square feet between the 2 buildings. The intention would be built both of these at the same time for economies of scale and to get it going all at once. These would be multi-tenant buildings, more than likely. We will maintain flexibility and could accommodate up to 4 tenants or users per building. Main access will be off Jackson Drive, the existing full access curb cut to the west. Exiting can also go back that route south. The 2 exits off Little Blue Park will be right in, right out only. This is a general landscaping plan. As mentioned, we're going to do everything we can to really enhance screening along the north and south property lines. This would be, I apologize. Evergreens along the north, this will be a permanent screen. The perspectives also shortly reflect 12 to 15-foot trees. Day one, we'll be planting probably 6 to 10-foot trees with the expectations of evergreens growing about 2 feet per year in growth. It will take several years, but there will be a nice landscape screen. We will also be screening to the east and west off Jackson and Blue Parkway as well. And with limited setbacks and grading, we'll do everything we can to berm along the east and west, but we don't have a lot of room, or we really don't have a lot of dirt to do that, but we'll do everything we can to protect the view corridors. Go to the So this is a perspective looking from the southeast corner of Building 1 along Little Blue Parkway. As you see, again, these trees are about 12 to 15 feet tall. That's after several years of growth, but we believe we can screen the trucks and everything within the property line. This is heading north, further along Little Blue Parkway, as we're approaching the middle of the two buildings. Again, this is about that third or middle curb cut, which we have eliminated. Again, this allows us to do additional screening and better park internally to the site. So this is looking from the northwest corner along Jackson, looking back at Building 1. This is heading further south along Jackson, looking at the main entry point between the two buildings. And this is a further southwest viewpoint from the southern building looking northeast off Jackson. And this, of course, is a zoomed-in version of all four corners. This would be a typical entry point for office. Again, we'll be dressing this up in terms of color and masonry or stone with staff. And that is all we have. We're here with our civil engineer, another person from Main Trust. We know there will be a big discussion tonight. We will do everything we can to answer any questions and concerns, and hopefully we can come up with a great project. We're really excited about this. We think this is a great use for this site. We're very confident in our capabilities and this project being a success for everybody. So thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Harrison before he sits down?
What's an example of the kind of tenants you're trying to attract?
So I'll answer this the best I can because we truly don't know. This could be e-commerce users. These could be food grade users. It could be traditional warehousing. It could be light manufacturing. These are super flexible buildings. They are 32-foot clear inside. We'll have power. We'll have lights. There are dock doors, obviously, and drive-in doors. We're doing the best we can to guess and track market. We've done a lot of industrial and manufacturing across the country. We've done a lot in Kansas City. So again, we try to maintain flexibility throughout, and we're going to be really reactive and try to carve these up. But it's a long list of tenants.
Okay, thank you. Now, we had a few more folks come in, so I want to remind you that if you think you're going to speak tonight, that you need to be sworn in. Is there anyone here who came in after everyone else was sworn in that thinks they might like to speak? If so, please raise your hand. All right.
There's more seating up here too, if you all want to sit. Okay, just want to make sure.
Okay. We're going to open up for the public hearing. First, we'll ask for those who are in favor of this case to speak first. Is there anyone here who is in favor? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Tom Lesnick. I serve as president of the Independence Economic Development Council. I'm here to speak in favor of the rezoning request currently in front of you. The last time I spoke to you was back in December, when a portion of this site was also being considered for rezoning to business park classification. This includes a 34-acre parcel which this body approved for rezoning for business park classification, but was tabled by the City Council due to a lack of final design plan and identified developer. I think the big difference between now is that you have a plan in front of you and a developer of record leading the project. The situation for industrial space is the same as it was back in December. We are still severely lacking commercial buildings needed to attract and retain light industrial businesses. The role of the EDC, the Economic Development Council, is to enhance the economy of our community through the attraction of private capital investment and the jobs that capital investment creates. And I believe this project checks off several boxes in a significant way. So to give you a landscape of real estate, commercial real estate, and specifically industrial real estate in Independence as of right now, we have 7 total properties on the market that are classified as industrial. It's amazing considering we have 20 million square foot of industrial space in the city, and thank goodness to a good economy, a lot of that space is full and our vacancy rate remains at about 4%. Of those 7 available properties, each has their own set of challenges and unique conditions that make filling the space a little more difficult. The largest space on the market right now is 271,000 square feet. That's the Alice Chalmers Business Park. Many of you are familiar with that building. It was built in the 1950s. It is fairly outdated. It's old. It's not really what 21st manufacturing is looking for in terms of space. Space Center Underground, which has about 5 million square foot of space. Right now they have 51,000 square foot available. Underground is a fantastic asset, but it doesn't work for everyone. Limitations are ceiling height, and you can lease only with no possibility of owning. We also have 68,000 square foot available at the Lake City Ammunition Plant. This space was built in the 1950s and is government-owned property. It does have security limitations. It's behind a secure fence. For some companies, it's a little too prohibitive to do business in. Doesn't work for everyone. And also, every lease that's out there, there's a little clause in the lease that says you can be evicted on short notice if the government needs those buildings for their purposes. So again, challenging to put a company into that space. That leaves the remaining properties as small spaces that are less than 11,000 square foot. That limits greatly the size of company which can utilize that particular space. So I think Mr. Harrison kind of talked about the size of the buildings and the need for that. They're being built on a speculative basis. That means we don't have a tenant for them right now. They need to have as much flexibility as possible so we can serve a number of tenants that might come to us looking to fill the space. Certainly larger buildings can be split up, as he talked about. We can have up to 4 tenants per building. And that flexibility gives us the best opportunity to meet the needs of the various economic development projects that are looking at the Kansas City area at any given time. I've also gotten a question as to why this particular location. What we find is that most of prospects that are looking for industrial space, they want easy access to major transportation routes, and this provides easy access to Interstate 70 within a mile and a half. Like much of the Little Blue Valley, floodplain issues limit development or make it cost prohibitive to develop. The site does have some floodplain issues, but the previously approved incentives for this project, which are approved by the City Council, will help the developer overcome some of those mitigation costs so that their product can be competitive in the region's manufacturing space market. So let me share with you some opportunities we've missed out on since January 1st. These are projects that have come to us through the Kansas City Area Development Council, which is the external marketing arm for the Kansas City region. We've had 10 projects that have looked at the Kansas City Metro and are of a size that would have fit into the space had these buildings been in place. The space requirements for those 10 projects range from about 75,000 square feet up to 350,000 square feet, and those projects represented over 2,400 potential new jobs. Now, I won't tell you that we would have been successful recruiting every single project. In economic development, if you win 1 out of 20, you're doing pretty good. That's a pretty good batting average. But I will tell you that every one of these projects could not even consider Independence because we didn't have product to show them. I'll give you one example of a company that is considering Independence. This is an international company that is looking for their first U.S. manufacturing location. The nice thing about it is their biggest customer is located here in the city of Independence. They need 200,000 square foot that's ready by the first quarter of 2021. They'll invest $20 million and they will hire 150 new employees with an average wages exceeding $20 per hour. We have an incredible advantage because that company's largest customer is here in Independence. But at this time, we have nothing to show them. So they are looking elsewhere within the region and within the Midwest. And without this rezoning, I can guarantee you we will miss out on this opportunity. Now, I will share with you the average wage for a working Independence resident is $23,390. That equates to $11.24 per hour. Wage rates in the Kansas City region for types of jobs that would fill these spaces range from $14.83 for entry-level production to $21.48 for machinists. In between those numbers are jobs for warehouse workers, assemblers, and packaging machine operators. There's no doubt we have labor force in this community to fill jobs. I think that's one of our hidden advantages that we have over most areas in the metro. But for individuals to enhance their lives, they need to have increased wages and family supporting benefits. And these types of facilities and the companies we can attract to these facilities will provide that and raise the standard of living for our residents who can fill those jobs. The growth of the valley was envisioned many years ago with the completion of Little Blue Parkway. It has clearly not reached its potential because I believe it's lacking the catalytic event which can spur additional economic growth. The Parkway was not built to provide a scenic drive between I-70 and 24 Highway. It was built to open up opportunities for development of approximately 32 square miles of Independence. The fear that a business park will decrease property values, I believe, is false in my opinion. In my experience in looking at other projects across the country, the effect has actually been the exact opposite. When jobs come into the area, the demand for housing explodes. Workers want to live within proximity of where they work. Look at the example of Southwest Johnson County. The growth of industrial in that area. The North Point Business Park is a perfect example. Millions of square foot have been built in industrial space in that area in the last 5 years. Just here in the past week, an announcement of a $200 million mixed-use development will include new retail, new office space, 3 hotels, and 424 apartment units, along with 368 single-family homes right next to the largest industrial park in the Kansas City metro. Industry and housing can coexist adjacent to each other, and each enhances the value of the other. Finally, over the years, we've talked to a number of developers about this type of project in the valley. This has been a priority for the EDC for a number of years because we have had low inventory of manufacturing properties. So just as much as Van Trust chose Independence, we chose them. We chose them because of the quality of their developments, and you can look at their history and what they've done all across the country. They have long-term commitments to their projects, and they build, and the overall strength of the company is top-notch. They build a good product. It's something that our community can be proud of. I thank you for your time this evening and for consideration of this project, and as you did in December, I again ask for your support to approve this request for rezoning.
Question.
Go ahead, Billy.
Mr. Lesnick,
Yes.
the last time you appeared before this commission, as you stated, was in December. And in your usual charismatic way, you led this commission to substantial vocal and vote support. However, in spite of your support and your endorsements, the City Council decided that whatever was missing in that was not sufficient. Help me to understand what is so uniquely different this time. Is this a business park? Is this an industrial park? And if you would, define for myself, this commission, and all listening, what is a business park, what is an industrial park, and what make this park whatever it is?
Well, I think an industrial park is probably it's an old term that we used probably back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. I think when most people think of industrial parks, certainly of my generation, we think of smokestacks. Sometimes we think of odors. We think of heavy industrial. Things like Alice Chalmers, that's considered industrial. For a business park, and if you look at the zoning code, it provides for a variety of uses, a lot of flexibility. It does not provide for uses, for example, that put off odors that are what I call high industrial use, where you have the smokestacks, where they're emitting some kind of either whether it be odor or whether it be some kind of emission. I think that's what an industrial park is. Business parks are much cleaner. No community wants smokestacks in their community. It's the world we live in. So business parks is kind of the term we use more so now. How is this different than the last time? I'm not going to speak for the City Council and their decision process. What I see as different from that time is that this time you have a preliminary plat. You have a developer on board who showed you exactly what they're going to do. Previously, it was kind of pie in the sky. You know, we had the 90 acres that Mr. Randall Pratt owns. We worked with him to develop, and I still think there's an opportunity for that. Mr. Pratt likes smaller spaces, and there's certainly an opportunity for smaller spaces. But from a developer standpoint, this company has stepped forward. There's some scales of economy that you can get with larger buildings. That's why they're building them both at the same time. But again, I won't speak for the council in terms of how the decision process was. They did vote to table the action on that at that time, though. And I did speak in favor in front of the council as well on that. So, or I guess no, I take it back. I did not speak in favor. I was planning on speaking in favor, but it was tabled. It was my intent. Thank you.
Does anyone else have questions of Tom? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor of this case? Please state your name and address for the record. And make sure you talk right into the mic, so you might have to pull it down. Thank you.
Margaret Paget, 11416 East 20th Street South, Independence.
Okay.
I am a business owner in Independence. I own several businesses. I've been looking for a place exactly like this for over a year in this city and have been unable to do so. And so the place looks beautiful, looks like it's well planned. Just from a business owner's standpoint, I believe that this would be a really good idea. I think it would bring growth to the city, attract business to the city, and create jobs. And that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
One moment, please.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Good.
You said you're a business owner and you would have used this facility had it been in existence. Explain to us what your business is and how you would have used it.
The business I'm talking about is Hearthmasters, Inc. We're a chimney and fireplace restoration company. We need a warehouse for storage and an area for a showroom for clients to visit to see our products. And we're not retail, so a showroom area is exactly what we need by appointment. Kind of like, you know, the tile stores and things like that where they show their wares also to other businesses. And this is exactly what we've needed, but we haven't been able to find anything. The other buildings are old, dilapidated, in poor areas where access is not good. And you know, this is more what we're looking for.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor of this case? Okay. We'll move on to those who would like to speak in opposition or who have questions. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. My name's Randall Pratt. I'm here as the owner of the 92 acres to the east of this project site across the Little Blue Parkway. It's owned by Beyond the Horizon LLC, and I serve as the president of that entity. I'll take that. I should first perhaps provide a little bit of historical introduction because in December of last year I stood at this podium speaking with you, advocating that this should be rezoned for business park. So if I don't explain why I'm asking for exactly the opposite today, there may be many of you who would wonder why. So the story begins before December. I was approached by a telephone call by Tom Lesnack asking if I owned the 92 acres. I did. They were seeking a site for a business park, and they had concluded that this 34 or so acres on the west side would not be workable for development, so I said that's fine. We jointly funded, the EDC and I, the planning process with Olson Associates, who also did the planning work for the Independence Commerce Center. This plan that was based on principles of what I understand, and I think through a collaborative process, we tried to define as a business park. Well, I'll get into the details of that, but this is a very different vision for Independence for what business park means as compared to what the Van Trust project is offering for us today. But before I get into that details, I want to make sure that everyone understands that this is not a discussion about personalities or the goodwill or intent of anyone. I want to say very clearly that I'm deeply appreciative of the EDC, the tenacity, the passion, the energy they've put behind Project W, as it's referred to. And I also want to make it very clear that I consider Van Trust to be an excellent company. And I welcome Van Trust Independence. Not particularly this spot with this project, but I would be delighted if Van Trust would partner with us in other places. And it's not about the quality of the developer. They're a very reputable company. What this conversation today is about what our vision is for Independence. But just to finish the history, as we've discussed, the City Council deferred action. I had an option on this 34 acres owned by the Gathering Baptist Church. They've been delightful to work with. And so some time went by and the Van Trust Group became interested, and now they're submitting what I would characterize as an industrial park. We'll go to the next slide, Brian. This doesn't seem to be working. Yeah, maybe the battery's dead. So in the next slide, you'll see the context for this that we've already seen with the comprehensive plan. Should I try it again? Oh, there, it decided to work this time. Yes. This is why this conversation is so important for us to have an eclectic basis within our community. This is a very strategic spot. Coming into Little Blue Valley, most people travel from the south to the north, from I-70 to the north to their homes or to their businesses, from the shopping, the dining, the hospital, the medical office buildings. The traffic goes from south to north. You can see Center Point Hospital at the bottom in the red shaded area with that zoning designation. And then it's a lovely entry as you go over the railroad tracks and come down the hill. And in my view, it's the gateway to the Little Blue Valley. And it's in the one location in Little Blue Valley where Jackson Drive and the Little Blue Parkway are very close together. And in fact, this project is in the area in between and also on both sides of Jackson Drive. I think everyone understands there are 3 buildings being discussed. One in the 200,000 square foot range, a second in the 300,000 square foot range, and the largest of the 3 buildings would be on the west side in the 400,000 plus square foot range. That's not the subject of this proceeding, but it's important to know that this is a 3-building project for the industrial park. So we have to talk about what our vision is for the Little Blue Valley. We've gone through some efforts and planning efforts in the past with the development of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. We've also spent quite a bit of time with the Uniform Development Ordinance. And the best summary, I suppose, that we have to date is this definition of BP district. It's what we're talking about. It's what we aspire to for this zoning. And we read that the BP district is primarily intended to be an attractive and appropriate location for low-impact businesses and employment uses in a campus-like setting, typical of modern business and industrial parks. Our dilemma is that BP district for zoning is rather new for Independence. We don't really know what that looks like. And what does a business park mean under the Uniform Development Ordinance? Here are some of my views, some of the elements that we tried to incorporate in the sketch plan, concept plan that was jointly funded by myself and the EDC. So looking through this table, I won't spend a lot of time, but the size of buildings in a business park have a variety of small and medium sizes, generally less than 100,000 square foot sizes, but there may be some that are larger. In the Van Trust plan, as I've mentioned, there are some large and huge buildings, 236,000 and change, 329,000 and change, and over 400,000 square feet. And the type of buildings would be different as well in the business park. There would be a mix of flex space, which could be used for retail, office, and manufacturing or storage in a variety of ways, office and retail. And the Van Trust plan only offers industrial buildings. The location of the large buildings under a business park would be second tier to the parkway. There would be other buildings that provide visual screening between cars that would go by on the parkway and the buildings themselves. But in the Van Trust plan, the buildings would be located very close to the parkway and in some respects would tower over the parkway. Importantly, how the space between buildings is used. In a business park, it's landscaped, it's green buffer, it's used for wet detention for stormwater, and cars are parked in between. And carefully note in the Van Trust plan, the parking areas provide for maximum site coverage. They put a parking space anywhere they can, and in between buildings, it's for truck parking. In a business park, loading docks would be on the side away from the streets, and the building themselves would provide buffering or visual amenities so that you don't see the trucks as much. In the Van Trust plan, it's a cross-dock design with large numbers of bays on both sides. And the outer side, both on the north side of Building 1 and on the south side of Building 2, there's 2 tiers of trucks. One that's backed up to the loading bay, and then even in front of that, a parking area where you'd see a second layer or tier of parked trucks. And in the business park, if additional truck parking is needed, it's on the side away from the street, shielded by the building, similar to the loading bays. In the Van Trust plan, we see on both sides of the building facing the street. It doesn't matter which direction you're going on the Parkway or Jackson Drive, you'll see 2 tiers of trucks. And the number of trucks in a business park are fewer because there's office and flex and manufacturing operations. But for the Van Trust plan for warehouse and distribution operations, the number of trucks are larger. And in landscaping buffers, there are higher standards for a business park and lower standards for the Van Trust plan. And importantly, in their application, they clearly state that they will be pursuing the landscape standards of an industrial park. So these are some images. Words sometimes are difficult to understand. The images make it easier. In a business park on the left, you'll see this building or business park in Lee Summit along 470. It's where Frontier Justice is, or trampoline zone. There's some medical offices and light back in there. And you can see the scale and visual interest of those buildings make it look very much like an office park, not just a warehouse facility. And on the right side, there's an image of an industrial park. I believe that's a Van Trust project, that what that would look like in comparison. Importantly, the buildings are oriented to visitors in a business park, not to trucks. In an industrial park, the image that's seen is very much of the semi-trailers and trucks. And even in the staff report, there is some discussion about that the longer side of the buildings will be dominated by the garage doors. Again, this is in Lee Summit. You can see the orientation of the buildings to Independence Avenue. And the buildings are oriented to be customer friendly, with the parking for automobiles closest to the street, landscaped areas, the parking or truck courts, the parking for trucks in the truck court and loading bays are on the back of the building, shielded from visual view by the wings of the building. There's quite a bit of landscape and strategic use of the space between the buildings themselves. And comparing again the business park to an industrial park, there's much more landscaping and green space that we would expect in a business park as compared to an industrial park. Importantly, the standards that we would normally apply would be a 25-foot buffer or setback. Part of the PUD that you would be approving this evening would reduce that by 10 feet, as was discussed by the staff report. On the north side, there would be plantings without a berm. Importantly to note, the berms would be on the sides, but there would be only 15 feet for the plantings. The PUD requires 6 feet with full growth. Most trucks are 13 to 13 and a half feet tall. The building itself would probably be 30 to 40 feet tall. And so note well that the green buffer wouldn't even buffer the top half of the trucks and would not even buffer a third of the buildings. So we're lowering our standards for green space buffering with the Van Trust PUD. We're not requiring from them the same standards we would for other proposals that come to our city. So combining those elements, I would strongly recommend for your consideration that what we're dealing with here is not a business park. It is an industrial park. So the collaborative vision that was developed in 2017 and 2018 is on the left. This is what I discussed with you less than a year ago. You can see how the green space relates to the buildings and how the buildings relate to the parkway by size and by uses. And it's a mixture of use in terms of flex space, some manufacturing, some wholesale operations and the like, with offices uses woven in. But see, importantly, how we use wet detention to provide visual amenities, and we provide opportunities for this to be a pedestrian-friendly experience instead of just a truck-friendly experience. And on the right, you can see, really, there's no green space between the buildings. And I would simply suggest that simply taking 2 industrial buildings and putting them on the same piece of land does not a business park make. So secondly, it's important to know what are our goals for the Little Blue Valley. And the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, which I'm sure you're familiar with, it was not long ago that this Planning Commission passed its approval or conveyed its approval. I was here by chance on that day. And importantly, there is a very clear vision of business and jobs. And our vision is to create 21st century jobs that help our community prosper by diversifying sectors focused on healthcare, advanced manufacturing, and engineering. I completely agree with Tom Lesnack. We need space for that to happen in our city. That is an important priority for what we should be about. But this is the wrong space for this kind of a project. And importantly, a cross-dock warehouse creates relatively little employment with few highly skilled, high-paying jobs. If you would peruse the staff report, it is noted in several places that, this is on page 2, the analysis, under consistency with the Independence for All strategic plan. It talks about filling a need for warehouse distribution space. It also speaks to that in the second line of the staff report. Also, the Olson and Associates report that discusses the hydrology of the area makes a clear reference to the use of this project. It says the proposed project is a distribution warehouse, which will utilize truck courts and loading docks. And we then have to ask, well, if that's what it's designed for, if that's its highest and best use, isn't it going to be warehouse operations rather than manufacturing? So I'll use an analogy, if I may. If we wanted a high-end steakhouse, we wouldn't put it into a building like a Costco. It wouldn't be suited for that. But you can sell as many hot dogs and a drink for $1.50 all day long in Costco. It is a very good place for that sort of use. And if this is a project that's designed for cross-dock warehousing, I offer a bit of information, a quote about what cross-dock warehousing is. This comes from the internet, the source is cited. Sometimes simply called a cross-dock. Cross-docking is the receipt, temporary storage, and release of a shipment where the warehouse involved does not control the freight in or out. Warehousing companies will often facilitate cross-docking in which they have little or nothing to do with the inbound or outbound freight. These warehouses simply act as a temporary storage facility for the shipment. And the design that's being proposed to us with loading docks on both sides, lots of truck storage, is in fact a warehousing operation. It is a cross-dock warehousing operation, which is optimized for this type of pick and pack operation. One example of this, or similar building from the Van Trust website, is the Rickenbacker 567 facility. And from the website, Van Trust website, it reads, this Rickenbacker 567 is designed as a multi-tenant building targeting bulk warehouse tenants. And if you look at the design of it, you'll see the docks are 2 tiers for the trucks on both sides. Very similar configuration of the building where the parking is located. You can compare what you see on the right side to what you see on the left side of the screen. And the concern I have above all is that if this is all we get from this project as a warehouse operation, is it worth the sacrifice we make as a city for this type of development, which sets the tone for the Little Blue Valley? Because if this is all we get, then it is not a sacrifice worth making. If we did receive the kind of jobs that we talk about in the 2040 plan, focused on healthcare, advanced manufacturing, and engineering, it might be. It might be. But representing biotechnology and pharmaceutical companies as I do, I've been in their manufacturing operations and warehouses, and I can tell you they don't look like this. Those are not the kinds of businesses that select a facility like this. So we've made significant investments in the Little Blue Valley. It's commendable that our community has struggled and prevailed for the construction of the Little Blue Parkway and Jackson Drive. But those investments have to benefit all of the areas of land that are adjoining the Little Blue Parkway and Jackson Drive. In some sense, a very real sense, we are benefiting this small area of the Little Blue Valley to the detriment of other areas. By the traffic that we have on the Little Blue Parkway, if we drop the speed limit to account for the ride-in, ride-outs, if we tear up the roads, if we chill development for other portions of the Little Blue Valley, we have significant issues for a return on that investment. And I just want to note that most of the photographs that are presented by developers for their buildings don't really show the trucks. They take them before, I suppose, they're used or when the trucks aren't there. But what we will really see is not the marketing photos that have been presented today, but you'll see in the slide, we'll see a lot of trucks. The most prominent feature that we will see is the trucks. Quoting from the staff report on page 3, the building's long sides will be dominated by docks for both loading and unloading. Thus, the buildings, which are longer east to west than north to south, will be dominated by garage doors on the north and south side of both buildings. Will we receive a return on this investment is a very significant question for us to discuss as a community and come to consensus on. I'd like to offer some more technical points for your consideration. It's appropriate for the Planning Commission to consider these points. The first one I'll note is that as part of our collective development of standards for the Little Blue Valley, we have the Parkway Overlay District section of the Uniform Development Ordinance. I was one of the contributing authors for this. And I'll simply note, I think you have a copy of it, that the goal or the vision we had with the Parkway Overlay District, including preserving open space and park-like land, deemed essential to the quality of life and the general health and welfare in the city of Independence, Missouri. A second goal was to preserve the appearance and functionality of any parkways as intended and designed. Third, promote attractive and functional residential, non-residential, and mixed-use developments that are compatible with surrounding areas. And one key element of that, in terms of setback requirements at 250 feet, was that unscreened loading docks and loading areas, unless located on the side of a building opposite the parkway, would be prohibited. And so from that standpoint, the Van Trust plan does not comply with the Parkway Overlay District. It does not comply with our law. This is our law. We said that this is our ordinance. And there needs to be justification from a departure of that law, and that justification has not been stated in the staff report. It's not been presented to this commission, and there are specific standards from when this law can be overrode, and that justification has not been offered. Secondly, as you've already heard, the parkway is used as a local access road. Prior plans from Van Trust, which I saw when I was in discussions with them and passed on the opportunity, had even more connection points. One planned as much as 6 more connection points. There are design issues. Is the parkway being used for the purpose designed? There are safety issues. Because of the curve of the road, will there be accidents because it takes a long time for an 18-wheeler to get onto that street and up to speed? Will we have to reduce speed limits to meet safety issues because of that? We've already discussed the insufficient landscaping and buffer areas. And one of the staff report provisions, I believe, referred to a 60-foot side buffer with berms along R.D. Mize Road and Little Blue Parkway. Looking at the plans, in my view, there's only 30 feet that's available. I don't think there's room for 60 feet. And in some of the areas where there might be room for 60 feet, it will be very difficult to have a berm because there's a flat area or stormwater detention basin or something. I'm not quite sure what's there, but it's very difficult to build a berm in a low spot like that. Note well that the parking requirements are reduced for this project below our standard requirements. Normally we would require, I think, just over 3 parking spaces per 1,000 feet of office. This is 1/10 of that, 0.3 something spaces per 1,000 feet. That would evidence that they don't plan much office to be there because they don't plan to have any need for the parking places. If it's just a warehouse, you don't need a lot of office parking places there. We also have fewer spaces, I think half of what we would typically require by our code for even warehouse parking spaces. So think of it this way, for 3,000 square feet of office, which would be a very generously sized home, there's 1 parking place for 3,000 square feet. Imagine in your own home, would you get by very well with 1 parking space for your home? I also note that the planned unit development provides that parking areas or paving would only have to be appropriate for use. This would mean that the parking areas could be gravel and not paved. I would expect in our city that we would require paved parking lots in any quality development. Particularly important for me is the fact that no stormwater detention is proposed or required. This is a quote directly from the application. It says no stormwater detention is proposed. And I'll tell you why this is important for me, because my land's on the right side of this slide, under the area that says in red, areas of flooding. And essentially, The city code requires a 100-year storm event detention on site, so that developments like this, who are all impervious surface, lots of roof, lots of concrete, lots of roads, I would say at least 90% impervious surface, 10% might be in some grass somewhere, I suppose, some berm. But 90% of that will shed water very rapidly. This is very flat land. Their hydrology report notes it, and they say, well, why really detain it if it's flat? Just let it roll off somewhere. And essentially, in the plat, building 1, the larger the building, the north half of that building, there's no detention whatsoever in the plan. It just immediately drops into the blue line you see towards the top, which is a drainage ditch, which is there now. And for the other portions where they do have some very small detention basins, it's my read of those plans, it's only 2 feet deep. It's only calculated to hold the 1-year storm event, not the 100-year storm event. And they're not even required to do that if they change their mind. I suppose they wouldn't have to put that in per the application. But just as that water moves very slowly across the flat land of the Van Trust site, if my land essentially becomes the detention basin for the Van Trust project, which it will, there's nothing to stop the water from coming onto my land, it moves very slowly as well. And you can see an image, a photograph I took a few days ago of what that drainage ditch looks like across my land. It's nearly half a mile. And if you add the land that goes across the Little Blue Trace, it's more than a half a mile between the Van Trust site and the Little Blue River. And the justification in the Van Trust plan that they don't need to do any stormwater detention whatsoever is, well, it's better to get the water to the Little Blue River more quickly than wait a while so that water higher up in the watershed can take its time. But I do point out very respectfully that the Van Trust project is not next to the Little Blue River. They are more than half a mile away from the Little Blue River, and most of that half mile is on my property, and they will flood my property, and I'm not being paid to become their detention basin. And so this is very objectionable that for any development, we would say, oh yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about stormwater management. You just flood your neighbors. And this issue is not just for my property, but it's also for the property to the north and for the property to the south and to the east, to the west. It is all around if we have no requirements for stormwater detention. And lastly, I want to note, particularly because of the attendees to this, that the respecting neighbors in Little Blue Valley is very important for any project that we pursue. Industrial parks simply should not be next to residential areas. They should not. And we can't get by that by saying, well, it's really business park, so that's okay, because it's not really a business park. There'll be bad views of enormous buildings and scores of parked semi-trucks. Property values will be reduced for those that live in the area. There'll be noise pollution, light pollution, and air pollution. There'll be more traffic. And it is simply not respectful for those neighbors. So in summary, and thank you for your indulgence in the time, the Van Trust is for an industrial park. And this is a monumental mistake for the future of the Little Blue Valley at this critical gateway. It does not meet our vision for the Little Blue Valley. It does not meet our economic goals that would justify what we're doing. We should not waive our code requirements or dumb them down for this project, whether that's for landscape buffering or for parking or for stormwater management. We should require any project to comply with the law. If we need to change the law, we can do that, but we should require a strong justification for any exception to this. And lastly, if the Van Trust plan is the last option at the current time, we should wait a few years and try again for a true business park. That does not mean we should not be welcoming to the Van Trust group. I am very serious to say I would be delighted if they pursued a project in the Little Blue Valley, somewhere in Independence, but this simply is the wrong place for this particular project. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate your enthusiasm, but let's try to use a little decorum here, please. I'm going to read this section because I'm sure there's several people that want to talk, which is fine, but because this is the only public hearing of the cases on the agenda tonight, at least before our commission, all those who wish to speak will be heard. All comments and questions should be addressed to the chair, which is me, and not directly to the applicant or not directly to the staff. The chair also requests that statements be kept brief and on point, and that if a statement has already been made, please agree with it If you have new information, that's wonderful, but please do not repeat things that have already been said. Conciseness and new information is your best friend, not simply saying things and getting off topic. Okay, so having said that, whoever would like to speak next, please approach the podium and state your name.
Mr. Chair,
1
let me
second.
turn me on.
Yes.
Can I make a motion that we limit the speaking to 3 minutes per?
Guys, please.
Can we raise a hand on how many want to speak? So
How many would like to, how many are planning on speaking tonight? Jesus Christ. Okay. You're certainly welcome to make a motion. And if you would like, and if you get a second and you would like to speak to it, that's fine. You want to make the motion?
Yes, I move that we limit speaking to 3 minutes per person.
Okay, just, there's a second.
I second.
Okay. There's a second. Is there any discussion among the commission members about this? I would say that 3 minutes is actually not this is actually a long time to say things. Mr. Pratt gave us a ton of information on this. I would say, though, if you're speaking and you're giving me good information and you're not getting off topic, I will give some leeway. Okay? But I believe that this would probably focus what you have to say. So having said that, unless anybody has an objection, we need to vote on whether we're going to do this or not.
Okay. Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner McLean,
Yes.
and Chairman Ashball.
Yes. Okay. What that means is, and I'll keep the time, and I'll give you a little high sign if you're approaching that time. You have 3 minutes. Okay? So, having said that, sir, thank you for waiting. If you'd give me your name and address for the record, I'd appreciate it, and then you can continue. You can start speaking.
My name is Tony Martin. I live at 2415 Castle Drive. I live in the Woodcrest Farms Estates Edition, Castle Drive, and been there for 31 years. My property is located about 2,500 feet from the nearest building. The following is my thoughts about this current proposal. In the mid-1970s, there was a fairly successful office park on the northwest corner of I-435 and Front Street. I worked for Digital Equipment Corporation at the time, and their Kansas City office was in that park. At the time, it was named Executive Office Park, and it was a pleasant and convenient location for a lot of businesses. There was steady growth of the number and quality of the tenants. There were also a couple of restaurants, and later on, there was a very large hotel that was built in the park. And then came the trucks. First one very large warehouse, then another, then another. It wasn't long before the tenants realized that the office park environment was changing, and they didn't want to be located in a truck park. A lot of Digital's customers asked why we were located in a truck park, and some didn't want to come to our office for meetings. We moved out of there in 1982. Just about all of the office parks customers moved out, which left lots of empty buildings, severely reducing the property values in the area. All the restaurants died out and the hotel closed. If you're familiar with it, the hotel owners simply abandoned the property and the city had to tear it down. That was just a couple of years ago. Some people involved in this project would have us believe that growth is good for the city. Normally that may be true. However, this project will forever damage, this is all my opinions, okay? My opinion, this project will forever damage the values of all the residential properties around this location, probably to the point that it is probably already too late to sell our homes and move out of Independence. If I was looking to buy a home, I would never, never consider a place near this kind of a project. When the Independence Airport closed and the property was listed as available for a business park, I thought of the business park area around the Lee Summit Airport. I would not mind that type of environment and most of the structures there to be in that area. However, what has been proposed in the beginnings of the same type of environment, from what has been proposed is the beginnings of the same type of environment that happened on Front Street. This project does not bring activity suitable for being near residential areas. These locate, this is talking about the cross-docking parting because that's what we've learned. These locations operate 24/7 with constant activity, lots of truck traffic, and lots of noise and bright lights. If you really want to see what this project would be like when or if completed, just go out to the yellow freight yard between 40 Highway and I-70 next to I-435. Listen to the noise and the constant truck traffic. In my opinion, Jackson Drive cannot handle semi-truck traffic. The intersection at Castle Drive can barely handle car traffic. No one in their right mind would or should try to use that intersection on a bicycle, and there's a bike trail around there.
30 seconds.
Excuse me? Okay.
30 seconds.
Also, I don't think the Blue Parkway is suitable because of the lumps in the road. You know, it's all caving in. So if anybody is involved in this project, believe that it really would not affect property values in that area. I've got a couple questions for you, and this is the last. Where do you live? Imagine this project going in next to your neighborhood. Would you be concerned? Would you really believe that a speculative project like this would be used exactly as it has been presented here? I urge all involved to reject this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, would the next speaker please come forward, give your name and address for the record?
Go ahead. My name's Mike McMurray, and I live at 2705 South Mohican Avenue. My home was built in 1985. I'm on the west of Jackson, which they say that there's going to be another building 3 that's going to be there. Okay, my yard backs up to the detention or retention center that's there. My question, first of all, to the chairman, who currently owns this land, or has it been sold?
As you're asking questions, and this applies to anybody, I'm going to write them down, and we're going to find that out, because I don't know everything.
Okay, because I was the third house on that entire block. Okay, it was all fields. And for 30-some years, from the tree line, which is the end, to 50 feet out, all of us neighbors along there have maintained that. Even from the first owner, which was Potter, then it went to the bank, and then to the current owners that owned it. We've trimmed trees. They've never come, the owners never come when we've done all of it. I went 20 years ago to Bill McDonnell, and he said, let me look into it. He said, you basically own that 50 feet because you've maintained it all these years. Okay, when they did the surveying, I was telling the guy, and he goes, it looks like all the neighbors up and down here. My question is, there's no trees that are going to be put up so that we don't have to view this mess, because this isn't jobs for the city, because jobs is manufacturing. This is a storage unit and someplace to park tons of trucks, you know, and it's misleading to say that there's jobs because it's not a manufacturing plant. It's a storage unit, okay? And we get noise from Jackson as it is now. So there is no picture for trees, for evergreens, so that we don't have to see that mess all up and along, and all my neighbors along there, and to cut off the noise that's on the west side. Everything's been to the north and to the south, and semis do make a lot of noise. They do put off a smell, which, you know, so I don't, and as far as our utilities, taxes, and I do believe that the cost is going to go down for if you were trying to sell your property. And
You have 30 seconds.
okay, 30 seconds. But I think there needs to be more discussion on this, because I think it's a total train wreck for the area.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, will the next person please approach and give us your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Larry Hinkle. I live at 2413 South Glenview Avenue.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
And that is in the Prairie Landing Division. And none of these pictures that they show go up the hill on Jackson Drive and see the Prairie Landing housing additions. Our houses look out over the Little Blue Valley.
Yes, sir.
Currently, they look out over a soybean field, which is fine with me. But we will see the tops. You can call it an industrial park if you want. It's a warehouse. We'll see the top of this warehouse. I don't care what kind of trees they put up. You'll see truck traffic coming and going all times of the day and night. The only way to get from I assume, is if they're going to go to I-70, they are going to either have to go down Little Blue, or they're going to have to go down Jackson Drive. It's over 1.5 miles. They will cross 39th Street. They will come up on the new Menards, a shopping area on the other side, restaurants that are going in. Traffic is already pretty bad there at certain times of the day. If they decide they're going to go north and catch 78, that's not what these areas are for. This is a residential area of Jackson Drive. And you know what they're going to do. They're going to go that way if they want to go that way. I think this is a very, very poor use for this piece of property. And I'm sure most of the people that live in Prairie Landing feel the same way. This is not going to be a good neighbor. It's going to be just absolutely disgusting. We just had a house built there. And if I'd known this was on the works, I would not have built a house there. And I imagine none of these other people would either. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I'm Irene Baltrasitis, and I had this nice little speech written out, but a lot of people have covered what I was going to say, so I'm going to jump around a little bit. We built our house in Woodcrest Farms in 1990, knowing even then that there was going to be business development. A few years later, there was the new plan where I think it was Tom Woods was going to build single-family homes starting up at Castle, moving to townhomes, parks, ponds, walking trails, a business park at the bottom, where they're talking about putting this now. Because our property is not abutting this, but we, like all of the other people in this, well, many of them, have a good view of the area once the leaves fall off the trees. No one in our area received notice about any of this, about the hearings or the proposals or anything, because we don't touch up, even though it directly impacts our area. We will all be in direct sight, and the evergreen trees that they've discussed will not shield the scene at all. Like they say, we're going to see warehouses and trucks. Nowhere in the Planning Commission agenda and supporting documents did it state how many semi-trucks will be coming and going to the warehouse facility. Relying on the Planning Commission staff report, and under parking on page 3, only parking for passenger cars and passenger trucks is spelled out. They mentioned 170-something stalls somewhere else, and then another 200. Are those for trucks? The semis, are there going to be 100 semis, 200, 300? Where's that traffic going to go? It doesn't seem like there's any room for that. Skipping over a bunch of things here. I don't believe, and I'm not an engineer, that Little Blue Parkway and Jackson Drive were built with this kind of traffic in mind. I've lived there, like I said, since 1990. I watched the road go in. It's got a very nice bed of dirt, rocks, and asphalt with continuous traffic from semis using that every day, hundreds of times a day. How long is that road going to last, really? I think you need to have your engineers look at that. And like you said, the traffic is already a nightmare trying to get from down Little Blue Parkway to I-70. It takes you 10, 15 minutes at certain times of the day. What would it be like with trucks coming down that road as well? I also challenge each of you to drive to Missouri 210 Highway between 291 and I-435 and look at the dock warehouses that are along that road. Is that what you want for the Little Blue Valley? The city has already has an industrial park across from Lake City. I worked for the city when that plan was approved. This is where that project belongs. It would be perfect there, not amongst our neighborhoods. In the almost 48 years I've lived in Independence, this is one of the worst things that I've seen come before. It's just going to ruin the neighborhood. The city, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Over the years has spent countless millions of dollars studying how to improve the gateway along Truman, along 23rd Street, along 24 Highway. Why mess up another gateway with warehouses and semis that is not going to attract good development? Not the kind of development that you really want in Eastern Independence. It's going to become a problem like Western Independence, I believe. I thank you for the chance to talk, and I hope you will not vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. State your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Bob Webb. I live at 2333 South Old Mill Avenue in Prairie Landing.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
I'm just going to address one concern, and that is the traffic on the road that we're discussing in terms of how to handle Jackson. I'm concerned about the added traffic on Jackson at the intersection of Castle and Jackson. This may result from traffic coming off 291, then following 23rd Street to Jackson, to then access the Commerce Center to the south. I think one of the flaws in what has been proposed is that we're assuming that trucks will come north on Jackson, turn into the center, and then go back down south. I think if you're a trucker and it's late in the evening, you're trying to make a load, you'll take the quickest load out, and that'll be to come back up North Jackson and then out 23rd and through the housing areas that have been mentioned. As traffic moves south on Jackson, for example, it crests a hill just north of Castle, making it difficult to see the entering Jackson from Castle and Old Mill. In fact, there is a warning sign at the top about that intersection. From Castle, when you try to turn left to go north, you cannot see traffic coming. You just have to pour it on and drive as fast as you can to miss cars. Imagine semis coming over that hill. I would also add that hill is where school buses cross every day, back and forth, 3 routes. It's one of the major routes for ambulances coming to Centerpoint Hospital. And all of this traffic added to trailer trucks trying to come in and out could be a real recipe for disaster. We've lived there 10 years. I venture to say the city's replaced 5 or 6 light poles out of those medians at that intersection and below it because of cars coming through so fast. Also notice that our road coming out of toward Castle has been a favorite spot for our police to park to give tickets because it is a good place to notice traffic barreling up and down. Almost any time of the night, in the summertime, there are drag races up and down that area and then over on Little Blue Traffic Way. Obviously, somebody will have to find a new place to race if this place comes in. All I'm stating is, this is a tremendously dangerous area for people trying to go back and forth. I know that it's not the intention of the developers to add to that danger, but it is a built-in assumption that this kind of traffic in that area is simply not going to be productive and it's going to be harmful. Thank you for letting me speak to the issue.
Thank you, sir. Okay, who's next?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commission members. My name is Kenneth Love. I live at 16808 East George Franklin Drive. And I would like to thank y'all for being here for the citizens of Independence. Someone that's running for city council will look at and say, we welcome these jobs, we want these jobs. But I want to give a little history. A history of 35 years as a professional driver. Over 3 million miles accidents free. There's some truck drivers here, there's some dock people here, there's some mechanics here. I see a big problem for the city of Independence. And again, as a professional driver, I look at the roads that we have right now over at Jackson Drive or Little Blue. They can't handle 53-foot trailers, well actually 70-foot long tractor trailers. You want to go down to a small truck, maybe 45-foot. But they're all 13'6". The smaller trucks are limited to 26 to 30,000 pounds. The semi-trucks are licensed up to 80,000 pounds. Comparing Yellow Freight, FedEx, UPS, and I may forget some trucking companies, and I apologize to them if they have members here. There are weights and limits on a tractor and trailer. For non-experienced drivers, what we call your steers are your 2 front tires. Companies are allowed 12,000 pounds. Unless you buy a special tire, then you can get up to 13,000 pounds. The next part of a tractor is tandems or drive axles. If you have one set of drive axles, you're limited to 20,000 pounds on that axle. If you have 2 sets, you're limited to 34. On your trailer, trailers have 2 axles. That's another 34,000. So if you do the math, 12, 34, 34 is 80,000 pounds. The biggest problem I see, maybe we ought to take a ride. If any of y'all want to take a ride, I can make it happen. So you have the experience firsthand of being in a semi-truck, getting on and off the interstate, in and out of traffic, making right turns, blind sides. Yes, that's part of being a professional as a driver, is to make sure you don't have an accident. But in the area that you have here, it's going to be more accidents than you can shake a stick at, or you can shake out of a bag. Let's talk about the roads. City of Independence right now cannot afford to go and redo these roads that we have throughout our city with asphalt. Go down on Front Street with your own personal vehicle if you don't want to ride in a semi-truck, and look how rough it is. Let's talk about trash. Again, I don't like bringing out all of these bad parts because there are a lot of great drivers in our country. But it is a proven fact across the United States of America, truck drivers are named as nasty people. Citizens look at us as disgusting pigs that deliver to warehouses. Without trucks, America stops. Without food being delivered to your Hy-Vee, Price Choppers, you don't have a place to shop. So what do you look at then? What's next? Let's talk about trash. Let's talk about human waste. This becomes hazardous issues that people use plastic bags. And I know it sounds disgusting, but this is the truth. They get thrown out the window. Drivers use bottles that get thrown out the window. There's some guys that uses gallon jugs and just throws them out on the ground. They don't care. But this is the truth. Now here is one that I really hate to bring out.
You got 30 seconds.
Prostitution. It happens. It's not nice. I hope you look at this. If you've never ridden in a truck, you're more than welcome to contact me and we'll make it happen. Thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, sir. Okay, who's our next contestant?
For the Price is Right.
Thank you. State your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Sue Myget. I live at 19901 East Castle Drive.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
To start, I had a lot to say, but I'll limit it. To start off with, I've lived there for about 10 years. Was told we're going to have this nice lake, we were going to have pools, and then we were going to have some mom and pop shops. It was like, I'm on board. This sounds so nice. I'm going to be retiring in a year. Well, I don't want to retire in this house with this going up. You can put bushes, you could put lipstick on a pig. It's not going to look good. It really isn't. 10 years for the trees to develop. I don't want to wait 10 years till I'm 75 to just see trees. And I'm going to see tops of those buildings. I'm right there on Castle. Another thing, when I go to Jackson off Castle, it's like the other guy said, you just kind of say a Hail Mary and turn. I mean, I've almost gotten hit several times. My grandkids, when they come over to visit, I just cringe that they're there. Now, I'm going to have to worry about a semi-truck coming down. And, you know, that's something I choose not to worry about. I hope not to have to worry about. I feel like there has to be somewhere else that they could do this. I don't know where, but I will if this goes through. My house is going up for sale. I didn't move to a neighborhood to have semi-trucks that I don't even know what's going to be on them. Is there going to be chemicals that could explode? What's going to be on these semis? I mean, no one could guarantee us what's going to be on these. So I just thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, who's next? State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Kenneth D. McGregor. I live at 20108 East 24th Terrace Court South in Prairie Landing, about a quarter mile north of the north building. My view would look directly out onto the north building. And I echo some of the other Prairie Landing residents that this isn't what we signed on for. And I don't believe this is what the City of Independence needs or signed on for either, given Mr. Pratt's excellent presentation. It sounds like a lot of corners will be cut to make this project happen in the interest of getting a win for the Economic Development Council rather than getting the right strategic partner and the right strategic plan for the area. I don't think any of my fellow residents would have any problem with development, mixed use, office buildings or clinics or doctor's offices that might need space attached to CenterPoint. I don't think any of our neighbors would have a problem with light retail or even more industrial space, such as the alloy wheel repair business that's on the other side of Jackson Drive. But a truck yard is not the way forward for this city. And I believe you all know that and are aware of that. I don't need to tell you that. You have the opportunity here to set a precedent. As many people have said, the land there is just a soybean field, is essentially a blank slate. You have the opportunity to set the development agenda and course for the next 50 years for this city. And that's a very awesome responsibility, and I'm glad I don't sit on your side of the table. But as a property owner that will look directly at this is not the appropriate place for a truck yard. I work for First Federal Bank in our corporate office at 6900 North Executive Drive in Northeast, right across from a truck yard that looks very similar to the proposed development. And in the time that I've worked there, which has been about 11 years, we've seen the Park Place Hotel turn into Pripyat outside of Chernobyl and destroyed. We've seen small businesses close, and we've seen tenants and mixed-use development tenants flee the area because all it is a giant truck yard. That's not what I want in my backyard. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. State your name and address for the record, please.
John Chapman, 19804 East 24 Terrace Court South in Prairie Landing.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
So I asked the commission tonight to really think about this project. You heard about the band trust. They don't even know what type of tenant they're going to put in. That should be a huge question mark. Like the rest of the tenant or residents, I don't want this in my front yard. This is not my backyard. This is in my front yard. And I will tell the planning commission and everybody here, I'm not even going to wait for the project to be approved or whatever. I'm going to put my house up for sale because we didn't receive notice about this. I mean, I got a little flyer from the City of Independence that said that this was an ordinance. And if this is what the city wants, and this is what the planning commission is going to pass tonight, this is really bad for the residents of the City of Independence. So I'm going to simply ask you for each and every one of your vote to no on this particular project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Who's next? Name and address, please.
My name is Richard Mark. My address is 2500 Castle Drive. We've lived in Independence since 1968. I just want to make a couple comments about some things that were said and then go on to another point that would be something different. I thought it was ironic when someone talked about the difference between an industrial park and a business park, talking about how the industrial park had smokestacks. And all I could think of was about 300 or 400 smokestacks a day driving around there on the trucks. I mean, we've all seen semi-trucks. We also know all of the stuff on the internet about diesel vehicles, how a lot of the black soot comes out of those, and obviously not all trucks deliver that much black soot. We do know that they do deliver a lot more pollution and they do have a lot more smell. So I would say that I think that that is really an industrial park, what they're building. I want to also say that I strongly agree with what's been said by Randall. I think that you need to really dig down deep into the comments that he's made and really study those really hard. This is a time when we're deciding on what our vision is of the Little Blue Valley. And I do not think that what's being proposed today is fitting with that vision. I think we need to really strongly consider that. I am a cyclist, and I'm one of those guys that you might hit on the side of the road on my bicycle. I have a lot of people that I ride with. I lead a group of people that have raised money for the MS Society, and our team has been upwards to around 230, 240 people. So I know this community. Every Tuesday and Thursday night for about half the year, about 40 or so of us take off from Buffalo Wild Wings, and we go up Little Blue Parkway all the way to Buckner and come back. So we know Little Blue Parkway pretty well, and we understand the traffic that's there. And of course, it's concerning to us that there might be another 300-400 trucks a day that might be, that we might have to be concerned about, especially when there are some places on that pathway where it is a little tight. And the traffic is getting increasing in that area as more and more people are finding that it's a great pathway to go. So we're having to be more careful and more cautious. But the one thing I wanted to bring out is that the city has done a lot to try to make itself a premier city. And we know that in premier cities that cycling and pedestrian traffic and things like that is an important part of important, really premier cities. The studies have shown that when there is a good quality of life, that makes the citizens happier and feel better about living in the community that they live in. And they have found that avenues for cycling and pedestrian walking is a key thing to one of those, to developing that attribute in a city. And so RDMI's, Little Blue Parkway, and Jackson, as they've developed those, they spent a lot of money putting in nice, wide, trail-wide walkways. And so the citizens that all live there are utilizing those. And of course, one of the reasons is because they provide the pathway to the Little Blue Trace Trail that the city has developed down by the river. And so a lot of people are using that. So, and a lot of families are going there, and they're taking their kids, they're going down their bicycles, down those on those pathways, which is what the city set up, and they're going to that trail, getting a little bit off the road, but they have to go on R.D. Mize. Most of our houses will empty on R.D. Mize Road, and then we will go down R.D. Mize Road east to get to Little Blue Trace Trail. But that means we have to cross Jackson, and we have to cross Little Blue Parkway. And even though there are lights and things like that that are helpful, you know, when you're going down with your family and you got kids on bicycles, sometimes it's not very easy to be controlling some of these activities that take place, even though you go to great lengths to try to prevent bad things happening. But there's a lot of cycling traffic, of a lot of families that are going down that way and are going to be crossing there. And now when you start adding 300 to 400 trucks a day, you're increasing your odds that something's going to happen. So I really don't feel that this type of development and the traffic, the extra traffic it's going to bring, is a good idea for what is the city has already worked to develop that takes place. And so, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Who would like to be next?
My name's Gerald Sidebottom. Excuse me. I live at 2412 South Glenview Avenue in Prairie Landing. I sympathize with the Planning Commission and their staff because I am not really sure what kind of project we're looking at here. I've worked in the engineering business for 37 years doing consulting work, and if you look at the drawings, they're showing cross-dock warehouse, which is different than mixed buildings where you've got maybe some manufacturing, maybe some storage. You can't place numbers on how many trucks we're going to have a day, how many employees are going to be at the facility. This, you know, how this is going to affect the traffic in the area. If you look at the traffic, and I'm sure a traffic study has probably not been done, but if you look at the traffic in the area of 39th and Little Blue Parkway, or Jackson and Little Blue Parkway where it crosses there at Menards, at certain times of the day and at certain times of the year, it's almost impossible to get through there. If you add another 50, 75, 100 trucks a day, it's going to make it even worse. So you have my sympathies in trying to determine what the answer to this is. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Who would like to speak next?
Good evening. My name is Paul Clem. My address is 210 West 5th, Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm here as a property owner. My company and my business partner own this company. It's named Pligmo, stands for Prairie Landing Investment Group of Missouri. And we are located directly north, contiguous to the tract that we're discussing this evening. We have 77 acres undeveloped there that are zoned as R6 PUD. Then across Jackson Drive to the west, we own 33 acres, also undeveloped, and zoned as R6 PUD. that will be contiguous to the third warehouse that we're not necessarily discussing this evening. So this does impact us. And I would be very emphatic in sharing that we're pro-development, we're pro-growth, we're pro-business, we're pro-independence. I have a great affinity for independence. But for many of the reasons articulated already this evening, we oppose this project as it is proposed now. And a quick, succinct summation is we just don't, for many of the reasons already expressed, but bottom line is we feel that it is not consistent, nor does it conform to the comprehensive plan that the city, the long-term city plan as a business park. We see this more as an industrial park. And we would be all for a business park, but we urge you this evening that you will oppose this plan as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who's next?
Mr. Chairman, Steve Graffio, 1001 West Walnut, and I stand to speak on behalf of the Little Blue Valley West LLC, which owns approximately 900 acres immediately along Blue Valley between Necessary Road to the south and Bundschuh Road to the north. As a neighboring landowner and member of this community, you bet. Is that better? As a neighboring landowner and are a member of the community, we have a strong interest in seeing the development of land along the parkway approved in a manner which encourages the highest and best use of the land all along the parkway. We are concerned that if this plan, if implemented in the way currently proposed, will negatively impact adjacent properties and all those properties going north along the parkway. Our concerns are threefold. One, the design of the preliminary development plan by the applicant fails to adequately aesthetic concerns related to large warehouse projects such as this in highly visible corridors. In doing so, the proposal hinders future development of surrounding properties which support new residential, retail, or commercial development. Two, because of the potential negative impact industrial developments such as this have on the growth of other forms of development, we believe this type of industrial development is better suited for other areas in Independence. For example, the undeveloped land adjacent to Lake City on the west side of the roundabout at 7 Highway and M78 could provide for this type of development without hindering other forms of development along the parkway. And three, as the owner of approximately 900 acres along the parkway to the north, our strongest objection to the preliminary development plan is its intention to permit 3 right-in, right-outs along the Blue Parkway within a 0.3-mile span. We're glad to hear tonight that one of those will go away in the final planning, but the parkway was always intended to be a limited access road. Allowing curb cuts every 1/10 of a mile was never the intention or design. From the site of this proposed development, the Little Blue Valley Parkway extends north another 4 miles between Necessary Road and Bundschuh Road. If the road plan for this project was extended to all the undeveloped land along this 4-mile stretch of the parkway, there could be up to 40 right-ins and right-outs along one side of the road. It will be impossible for the city to develop land along the Little Blue Parkway as its highest and best value use if the city allows developers to slowly convert it into local access streets. By allowing this developer denser road access along this section of the parkway, this planning commission would hinder the future flow of traffic and negatively impact future development along the parkway to the north. This precedent for denser road access is inconsistent with the original design for the parkway, and this development, as currently proposed, is not the kind that will spur additional growth in the valley. It is our sincere hope that the commission will consider each of these concerns and direct the developer to revise the proposed plan to address them in a manner that is beneficial for the city now and in the future as development migrates further north up the parkway. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Who is next to speak?
My name's Roy Ford. I live at 20225 East 23rd Terrace South in Prairie Landing. And I've got one question. Has there been, since this is a floodplain, has there been an environmental impact study done on that area? Because we're going to have there's going to be a huge parking lot, there's going to be hundreds of trucks. It's a cross-dock warehouse, and basically they're going to store lots of goods there. We don't know what they're going to store in there. And with trucks in there, there's going to be spillage in the parking lot of fuel and who knows what. And all of that will end up flowing out of that place into the Little Blue River. And I was just wondering if anybody cared about that part of it. Has there been an environmental impact study done on what a place this size is going to cause?
We wrote that question down, and we will make sure we have an answer for you.
Okay, thank you so much. That's
Thank
all.
you.
Hi, I'm John Biggerstep. I live at 19414 East 28th Terrace South, and my property backs up to what is pretty much, I think, owned by the Hilburn family before. They have a Hilburn trucking company that's down in part of that light industrial area. There are 4 or 5 businesses there. One of the nice parts about them is that typically by about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, or maybe a little bit later, they're gone. You know, they've dealt a little bit with their lights and helped us out, and you know, they put in some high-powered lights to help out the area around there, or for their security, but to help out the area, they trim those down, and they keep it pretty nice for us. I can't imagine, like I said, I've got 300 feet of property that goes along that soybean field. I've been taken care of, like somebody else mentioned, I've been taken care of about 20 yards into the property behind my place since I've lived there for 17 years. But the nice part about it was I didn't have to worry about anybody after a certain time. I don't see any way that this business operates anything less than 24 hours a day. I don't see any way that we don't see truck lights, hear trucks, smell trucks 24 hours a day. How can that exist in a residential neighborhood? And that's what this is. This is not a business park. This is not anything else. It's residences that are here. We all are going to have to live with it. There's not a single tree along my 300 feet. So I'm going to see all of it. I'm at an elevation where I'm going to see the tops of these buildings. I'm going to see every truck probably that's in it. And it's wrong. I mean, it is just absolutely wrong for this area. The other thing that I want to mention is that the amount of water, when we get a good rain, not a heavy rain, a good rain back there is incredible. And if you go covering 30% of it, of that whole area behind us with these parking structures and buildings, there's absolutely nowhere for that water to go. If you go back there and watch on one of those days where a decent rain is coming down, cars are putting up enough water that they can barely go through the area. In a heavy rain, they can't. There's water on the road. So what's going to happen when you put that much more water on there and trucks going through it? This is just absolutely nonsense, to be honest with you. I know that there's a need for industrial buildings, not here. This is the wrong place. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I didn't raise my hand, so would you swear me in, please?
Raise your right hand. Repeat. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth before this commission? If so, please answer, I do.
I do. My name is Shelley Lee. I live at 2400 South Glenview Avenue in Prairie Landing. My husband and I were the first house built in Prairie Landing back in 2007. I know you all are aware that the first developer went under in 2008, and so many promises were broken at that time, and we've limped along. I work for Reese Nichols. I'm a real estate agent. I'm the listing agent for Prairie Landing. I've worked tirelessly to bring life back into Prairie Landing. I want to point out it is the only new housing development in the Independence School District. It's one of the few new housing developments in all of Independence. We've added 30 homes in the last year, And I want to be very clear that this development will absolutely destroy our hard work bringing back that neighborhood for families in Independence. I encourage you to all vote no. This is a terrible plan for our neighborhood. And I do want to point out that the photographs, which I think were very cleverly taken, do not show how close this land is to homes. I encourage all of you to go out there and drive it. We are very close to this proposed area, and I want to be clear as a real estate agent that you try and sell a house next to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, could you hold on just, no, come forward, please. I know you've been waiting. Just come forward, just 1 second. Okay, I was thinking that. Sorry for that little bit. Go ahead, sir.
I need to be sworn in as well. I apologize.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We'll swear everybody in all day long.
Okay.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth before it's commissioned? If so, please answer, I do.
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name's Mike Steinmeier. I live at 3416 South Crane Street. And first of all, thank you for taking the time to serve our community and to give ear to our fellow residents. I think that's a wonderful thing. That's what the beautiful thing about Independence is there's a lot of passion here. Has been since I was a kid. So I was a drag racer back in the 70s down there. So I do know. But I just wanted, I'm not going to espouse on anything. Everybody has said everything quite eloquently, and I just appreciate that. I am running for city council in this district, and I just want you to know that I opposed this project. I did when I heard it proposed to the city council, and I think we can do better. I think we can be innovative in the city and be progressive, but we can do better. And I agree with everyone here tonight that stands opposed to it. I think we need to reevaluate and look at it from a different lens and be innovative and be different than what has already been proposed. So again, I think we can do better tonight, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Is there a protocol for a restroom break? I've never needed one, but it would be great if I could have like 3 minutes.
We're going to take a little recess.
5.
3? Yeah.
Say 3.
Okay.
I'll let everybody know that the average time everybody spoke was about 4.5 minutes. Okay, so you can take 4.5 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, just want to be clear, is the public hearing still open?
The public hearing's still open. We'll all be back here in 5 minutes or so. Okay? or restarted. Okay, we're still in the public hearing. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak against this case or who has questions? State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Christina Owsley. I live at 2325 South Heartland Court in Prairie Landing.
Was she sworn in?
Were you sworn in?
I was.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, can you tell me your name again?
I'm sorry?
What was your name again?
Christina
Thank you.
Owsley. I built my house 10 years ago. Facebook memories have been flashing all those little pictures at me. At the time, it was the Woods development, and we were given certain promises. There were to be a community pool, there was to be a lake that would do stormwater retention, walking trails, and then south there was supposed to be some retail, maybe a grocery store, a church. It was going to be a beautiful community. We bought into that plan. We were encouraged to buy into that plan. We were told that that plan was submitted to this council and approved and that it was part of the city's plan. I understand that things change. When we first built, Jackson Drive didn't exist coming through. We had to go through Necessary, which no longer exists. And I don't do public speaking, so I apologize.
Okay.
We've watched the plans fall apart. Woods went bankrupt. They've now built a house where the community pool was supposed to go. We understand that things change. We watched the change with Little Blue Parkway. It was built to be a limited access road with higher traffic flow and higher speeds. We watched the turn signals that were originally put in with a flashing turn signal so that you could turn when there was no traffic. That has changed because of the accidents that have occurred, the fatality accidents that have occurred. I approached one of those and watched a vehicle with the engine halfway down the road. Freaked me out the first time. I worked for the police department. I later found out the engine was actually in the bed of the pickup truck, not. So I felt a little better about that. But they've had to change the traffic signals because of the accidents. We are now proposing that we're going to put more access onto Little Blue Parkway right where those accidents occur. And it's going to be semi-trucks. In my addition, we only can exit out of Jackson, onto Jackson Drive off Castle. There is only one way in and one way out. And we do not have enough traffic officers in the Independence Police Department to sit there 24/7 and try and slow everybody down. And they do not follow the speed limit. We take our lives into our own hands every time we try and get in and out. And now there will be trucks going, and they will not follow the speed limits either. I see this as two issues. One, broken promises. We all understand that changes happen, but we were promised an addition and a development that was community oriented. This does not feel like a community to me. I am not prepared to live in an industrial park, and I don't think any of you would appreciate it either. And it's a safety issue. I don't want to see any more fatality accidents in my neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak or ask questions? Go
Hi.
ahead. Hi.
My name is Tisha Humfeld. I'm actually a RE/MAX realtor. I live in Green Valley, but I do have clients that are actually building in Prairie Landing and are extremely worried about their resale value.
Go ahead and give us your address, though, please.
1106 Northwest Hickory Court in Green Valley, Missouri, 64029.
Sorry to interrupt. Thank you. Go ahead.
That's okay. My husband also owns a trucking company. He has 13 trucks. I know personally how those companies kind of run. So with this many doors, I don't know if it will be a drop where semis can come in and just drop their trailers and leave, or if it will be a live unload. If that's the case, they'll be parked on the sides. They'll be parked sitting out there in the parking lot. Their units will be running. If it's cold, they'll have to be running for heat while they sit there and wait for their time to unload or to load. Or they'll be finding parking other places if they're not allowed to sit on the on the premises until their appointment time. So most semis will either find a truck stop in that general area or find an exit ramp to pull on the shoulder and wait until their time. I don't understand, I guess I just can't comprehend when the Kansas City Post Office downtown at Indiana and 18th Street has 75 docks, and they have hundreds of trucks that come in and out all day long. How that area is going to be able to handle 177 to 200 docks. Like I said, I do live in Green Valley, and we come into that area a lot to eat because you guys have most of the good restaurants. If it's like that, there's no way the traffic will be a nightmare. We might as well just stay out in Blue Springs or. So the resale value of property will go down regardless of what anybody says. It absolutely will go down with the nightmare trying to get in and out of that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just come forward up to the microphone. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth before this commission? If so, please answer, I do.
I do.
Thank you. State your name and address for the record, please.
Connie Butcher, 1609 South McCoy Street. My family lives on Selza Road, which goes between 39th Street and Artie Mice. There are deep ditches and narrow roads, and we have noticed an increase in truck traffic, semi-traffic, and my grandkids and all the kids that are on that street have to walk all the way down to Artie Mice. My granddaughter catches it a little about 6:30 in the morning. I have observed picking those kids up for more than 10 years, traffic going around the noise 24/7. So I am opposed for my family. On behalf of them, I say, you vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
My name is Steve Shirk. I live at 1909 Southeast Abbey Street in Blue Springs. My wife and I will be moving to East Castle Drive, just west of Jackson. Had we known about this, we would not have made that decision, but we didn't. And, you know, really, this is not about the people, I mean, just about the people that live right in that area. It's about the people of Independence. And I have, the thing that's really, I question the most is, I was taking notes as fast as I could. I believe Mr. Pratt stated that several concessions were made to the Parkway Overlay District Plan. If that's true, I would really like to know why. Now, I may, like I say, I was taking notes as fast as I can. That may not be the case. Something else I wrote down, and again, my notes could be wrong, but I believe one gentleman stated that it would bring several jobs to the area, $14 to $21 an hour. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to live on $14 an hour, but, and please, I'm not degrading anybody if that's their salary, but it's tough to live on $14 an hour. And I wouldn't really say that, wow, if we can get $14 hour jobs in here, maybe employ 100 people, that's a big win for the city and the people of Independence. During the presentation, they said, if I add it right, 750,000 square feet. Speculative. They don't know who the tenants will be, but both the long sides of both buildings will be dominated by docks. That would make me think that they do have a pretty good idea who the tenants will be. Again, you know, if I misunderstood, please forgive me. Are there any businesses in this industrial park that residents would use? When my wife and I picked out our lot, I looked down the street and I saw the place that repairs wheels. In fact, I knew it was there because I've used it. I don't think I'm going to be pulling into this 750,000 square feet, and I don't think very many people in the city of Independence will, because there's going to be businesses in there that they're going to use. I think that sounded more like what I heard described as a business park, but this doesn't seem like that's what this is. A lot of talk about trucks. There's a lot of hills coming both from the north and the south. And, you know, last winter we had some really icy roads. And I just wonder what the picture looks like with those trucks coming down those hills, trying to get up those hills, going south on Jackson, coming down that hill. And I don't think it's going to be pretty. It's hard during dry pavement, but icy weather would truly be dangerous. And I appreciate your time. I hope you vote no. I just want to say the best argument I've heard tonight, and my wife and I talked about this. Thankfully, somebody else presented it because I didn't really know how to. But if this is a 750,000 square foot facility for trucks and freight, warehousing, it's going to run the area down. It's not going to build it up. It's not going to create. It's going to, like a couple of gentlemen said, the office parks that disintegrated and when all the trucks started coming in. And I live in Blue Springs, and Blue Springs, when they got rid of the truck stop, when they rezoned it and put them out of the city, then things began to develop. This is a huge trucking facility. It's not going to benefit the city or the people of Independence. And, you know, that's just my opinion, but sure. I really haven't heard that presented, that the benefits to convince me anyway. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else like to speak against or ask questions? Wait a second. Wait a second, sir. I'm just going to pause for a second. Miranda, could you come up here, please?
You see, I think there's two people over here that are still waiting for the Airbnb thing. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry about that, folks. If you've already spoken.
I just have one question.
One short question?
Yeah.
Okay, could you come up to the microphone, please? State your name again, please.
My name's Mike McMurray, and it's 2705 South Mohican. I had it on my list, but what about these trucks that are all parked there? What about the homeless people that live in vacant trucks? No one's addressed that, but if you check with a lot of these areas that have vacant trucks, a lot of times when you open them up, especially truck driver, he could probably tell you this, a lot of times you find this. We're having problems right at Walmart, right behind the wooden fence, homeless people living there. So once they hear that we've got all these trucks, there's a good place for them to live, right in my backyard.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll make sure we ask that question. Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward and answer some questions or rebut or?
Would you prefer for me to answer questions, or obviously a lot there? I respect everything. Not sure.
Well, if you would just like us to answer questions, ask you questions, that would be fine. If you wanted to say something, that's
sure.
fine
Just,
as well.
Just backing up, we were asked to come to Independence and look at the business park, look at the industrial building, whatever we'd like to call it. We've been very clear. These are big industrial buildings. The last 9 years with the e-commerce boom and what has happened in Kansas City and really nationally, this is the new retail or the new industrial, and it is cleaner, it is nicer, it's bigger. We're doing these cross-dock facilities to build scale. There's of course docks on both sides, but we truly intend to carve these up into smaller tenants, again, for max flexibility. This will roughly be a $37 million project. We've seen tenants and users put more than the building is worth inside in terms of robotics, material, people. We would expect close to 400 people, and that's auto parking stalls as planned, which we hope to improve on this initial phase. We do have truck storage planned, which we can definitely evaluate if it is needed or not. It would not be built day one as shown on the plan. We'd again react to who comes and who needs what. This is in a very challenging site because of the valley and the floodplains. We're in the 100-year floodplain, so several feet below grade. There's a Corps of Engineers map out there that supersedes FEMA, which is an additional 2 feet above that. On average, we're bringing in about 5 feet across the entire site. The site to the west of Jackson, which is about 38 acres, was zoned and is zoned industrial. We are under contract to buy that. We're exploring what can fit there, knowing very well there's neighbors to the west. But that site has a lot of the dirt we could then flop to the east and really solve two problems. We could bring down the site to the west, fix the site to the east, and build 3 industrial buildings. We do not know the size of the building to the west yet. Obviously, we're here tonight. We're much further along in planning and engineering on the east side. We've done about 20 million square feet of similar product type across the country. We've worked with the Amazons, the Krogers, the Walmarts, light manufacturers, a little bit of everything. We truly believe this product type in this market will do very well. And we believe in this project. We don't want to do smaller stuff, not that it won't work, but we see this being a catalyst and something we can do very quickly to create mass and hopefully momentum for the neighboring properties. I will let our expert with Olson discuss stormwater management and traffic. We've done studies on both. We're currently working with FEMA. We've done a lot of studies to try to figure this out, and we think we can. Minus the job creation we think we can create, taxes to date are about $400 a year. Over a 20-year period, if undeveloped, which maybe is unlikely, but we're going to use that example now, is about $8,000 total. With our development, with taxes alone, we'd create almost $3.3 million of taxes. That's with 0 jobs. And we're not going to build this speculative without getting jobs. We fully expect to lease these to companies, or we shouldn't be here talking. I mean, we're putting a lot of capital at stake, and then we truly believe in it. That's not including the building to the west, which again would increase tax base and hopefully bring jobs. But that's why we want to be here. We do want to do good projects. We want to be part of the communities. I totally understand the concerns. Again, we were asked to come and try to solve this, and we're trying to do the best thing we can here. And this is what our idea was.
Okay, the commissioners have any questions? And if you want to defer to your other folks, that's fine. You all can stand up here at the same time if you want.
Might as well come up, Brett.
If there are there any questions?
Well, I think I was just going to ask, tried to write down some of the questions, just like.
Sure. Well, I mean, I know there's questions. I've just given you guys a chance.
Can you address, safety is obviously one of the things that was repeated through the evening with buses, emergency vehicles that also use that. What have you thought about that? What have you considered? What would you like to tell the residents?
Sure. Can you address traffic in Little Blue and Jackson and with the infrastructure in place and how that correlates with what you
Sure. For the record, Brett Lordson, 7301 West 133rd, Overland Park, Kansas.
Thank you.
I am the engineer, will be the engineer of record on the project. I've been working with Grant and Van Truss for approximately 15 months in this area, so know it fairly well, and echo his thoughts and respect for the concerns of neighboring citizens and the well-being of the community in general. But to specifically address traffic, yes, the traffic study was completed as part of our formal application. And just to kind of put it in context, I want to explain quickly what we look at in a traffic study, and then address specifically your concerns regarding safety. We assumed approximately 1 million square feet of this type of land use to generate conservative estimates for vehicles and trucks. When we do our study, we look at several things. What is the existing roadway like? How does it operate today? And how does that compare in the future with the addition of a project? I would encourage everyone to read the summary of the traffic report that's available. But to summarize quickly, we recommend signal timing modifications. We recommend those turn lanes, any turn lanes that are installed on Little Blue, have a deceleration lane and acceleration lane based on the posted speed limit of 50 mile an hour. I believe there was a comment earlier about concerning speed limits. We do not propose, nor would city staff propose, lowering speed limits at all. And the turn lanes are designed, or would be designed, based on MoDOT criteria. That said, getting to the safety component, traffic studies do not specifically look at bus interactions with other vehicles. However, safety is one of the warrants when you look at signals. No signals are currently warranted with the project. Staff has additionally recommended and stated, I believe in the staff report, correct me if I'm wrong, that they will be responsible for improving select sidewalk and pedestrian vehicle interaction locations. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, 1 second, please. Do you guys know what he's talking about? Because we have no traffic study to look at.
I think I'm going to refer this to Katie. I'm sure exactly what he was talking about as far as being in our staff report. What are you referring to?
Find that.
I think maybe we made a passing mention, but yeah.
Good evening, everyone. The traffic report itself is not included in the packet because this is it. But it is, there's a summary of our comments that have been kind of back and forth that was included in the staff report with some very minor comments. We did only have a handful of comments on the traffic study itself, and every single one of the comments that we made has either been addressed or we are working in a positive direction towards resolving those.
Are you comfortable with the 50 mile an hour speed limit?
Yes, absolutely. That
Really?
is how that road is designed, and I'm very, and that's Little Blue Parkway specifically.
Right.
That is how that roadway is designed. That is the full access signalized intersections are at those locations for very specific reasons, and we are very cognizant of how that roadway was designed. So modifying, especially those full access intersections, is something that really we don't allow, and that's why the right in and right out is only permitted, and those acceleration and deceleration lanes would be required for any kind of right in, right outs that would be on that roadway.
And those acceleration and deacceleration lanes are something that's there now, or
They do not
have to be
exist.
added?
They do not exist there now. They would have to be added. and that is because where the turn lane or where the entrances would be, those the acceleration, deceleration lanes would be adjusted to match those. So we did not include any of those in our original construction to allow for flexibility.
How long is an acceleration lane for semi-truck?
So the acceleration and
A
deceleration
loaded
lanes,
semi-truck.
they are based on calculations for the speed, for the amount of traffic, and that's actually one of the things that we commented on is the length of them, and so we're working on identifying the appropriate length for that. So at this time, I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay, so that was a way
But
of
he
saying
knows.
I don't know. Okay, but he does. Okay. Could you share that with us, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, 265 feet.
265 feet.
Yes, sir.
And the semi-truck will then be up to 50 miles an hour?
Yes, these are the turn lane dimensions.
All right. Do you have a question, Billy?
Yes. And to city staff. With the design and layout of Jackson and Little Blue Parkway, when it was originally designed and laid out, or as it is present, did it consider 65 to 80,000 pound trucks usage?
These roadways are designed to withstand truckloads. I cannot say specifically what the percentage that they incorporated into their design considerations. Little Blue Parkway, yes, did. Jackson Drive, I believe it's concrete, so it's asphalt? Okay, I stand corrected. Thank you. Anyway, the way that we design the roads are made to withstand the truck traffic or vehicular traffic that's on it. Our maintenance plan is adjusted to reflect the types of traffic that are on those roadways. So something that we're doing currently is we're kind of re-looking at how we do pavement management as a city, and we're really trying to focus more so on those main roads so that we can ensure that that pavement is maintained at a higher level for those higher traffic loads.
That was actually one of my questions was, as you look at that plan for maintenance, I mean, is this going to cost more because it's going to be kind of a high maintenance area?
It will definitely increase the wear and tear that's on the roadway, but that's kind of the intent of the high volume roads is to have them on a higher frequency repair schedule.
So, and for the entire length of the road, coming and going?
I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, it's not just right in front of the cross-dock building. It's all the way down to I-70 or wherever else they decide to go. And how would traffic be restricted from going to the north?
You mean like truck traffic?
Yeah. So they're turning right out, but what's keeping them from going back up and around towards 24 Highway?
So there's some areas, and this is something that can be considered from your perspective, and I'll have to refer to these gentlemen here as the experts. But we do have some areas where we have some truck traffic restrictions. And so, and that is based on a number of characteristics. So it would have to be under much more microscopic review than this right here. But we do have some characteristics that we will review and we'll work with the property owners. 35th Street is a perfect example over by, I don't remember what it's called now. It used to be Lipton Tea, but we, Unilever. Thank you very much. We work with them to make sure that their truck traffic is using the correct routes. And sometimes we get some feedback that the truck drivers are not using the appropriate routes. We work with them and they adjust it and make sure that it's corrected. So that's something that we have done and we have established as a priority.
Okay. Do the experts want to weigh in on this?
I'm not sure that our community development staff's ever been involved in no trucks past this point on any roadway. Not the time that I've been here that we've ever designated areas as no truck traffic. I'm sorry, I don't know what you're following.
And that's something we can do as a traffic review as well, so.
Okay, so essentially it's through signage,
Through signage and ordinance.
in ordinance and enforcement.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. All right, any other questions?
One of the questions presented by one of the residents presenting had to do with environmental impact. That is the impact of diesel, et cetera, in proximity to the Little Blue Creek.
Yes. Yes, I noted that as well. We've done a number of studies on the property. We are required by the federal government to submit a delineation for wetlands, which has been completed and submitted to the Corps of Engineers. Regarding specifically any oils from a pavement you might see, that was brought up. The city does not have an ordinance that requires any development to treat stormwater in terms of what is called a BMP, where water goes to be treated, where it sits for a while, temperature can be decreased, etc., pollutants removed. However, despite no formal requirement, our plan identifies collection areas for holding back stormwater the best that we are able, and which also conveniently serves as a way of treating the stormwater runoff as well. Certainly want to be good stewards, so hopefully that addresses that.
You say stormwater retention is in the plan?
In our proposed plan, we have.
Is it in the plan that's presented here tonight?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Can
It's,
you-
it's labeled on our. It's labeled on the site plan.
Could you show us
Sure.
where?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, can we put the site plan up? We refer to them as collection areas.
Sure, okay.
Yep.
We're familiar.
Okay. The two largest collection areas are on the east. Oh, sure. Okay. This area and this area, two collection areas along Little Blue. Collection areas here and here. Collection area here, along here, before it goes below Little Blue Parkway. Oh, yeah. Here, let's do this. Okay. We'll start over. Collection area 1, collection area 2. Those both feed across Little Blue. Collection area here and here. One over here. And those are the 5. Similar drainage patterns to existing conditions as the fields run off.
Okay, so the calculations have been done for the parking lot and all the hard surfaces and all that, right? Is the storm sewer that leave there, is it appropriate size to handle that volume of water?
Yes, sir. Yes, a drainage study has been completed in preliminary calculations. Part of final approval is we have to prepare a final drainage study and design that must be approved by Ms. Horner and her professional staff. And we submitted September 13th. Since then, we've developed advanced hydrologic models. We've presented different solutions and alternatives, which we can go through if we need to. But yes, that will be an additional submittal with staff, in addition to what we've submitted already. Yes.
Are there any other, does the commission have any other questions of this gentleman?
The 400,000 square foot warehouse, where would it be located?
So we're, again, under contract on the ground west of Jackson, which is zoned industrial I-1. It could be up to 400,000. I do not expect it to reach that size. It will still be large, but it'll be on the west side of Jackson.
On the west side of Jackson?
Yes.
South and north of what?
Directly west of the two buildings we're proposing on the east.
Okay.
So that is just a little bit north of where the wheel place is? Is that approximately
Correct.
where it is? Okay.
So it's not on this map because we're under contract on two different pieces, the ground to the east and the ground to the west. We're, again, much further along in the process, is why we're here tonight, versus the west.
And you're taking soil from there and moving it to that site?
That is the intention, to lower the site to the west and increase the elevation on the east to solve the problem for flooding and the elevations.
That's a lot of dirt.
It's a lot of dirt.
So are you also planning, when all that dirt's moved, to, I mean, I drive by it, but I haven't really looked at it like it's going to be removed. So is there going to be a huge retaining wall?
So part of
on there?
the equation on the building to the west in terms of size is we do not want to introduce retaining walls to the west of that property. And so we're going to need to shrink that building in terms of depth or even reconfigure it to solve for that. But we need to figure it out, and we're still trying. The idea when we first started was the 36 acres on the east side by itself, and we'd go find dirt wherever that may be. When we discovered the property to the west was already zoned industrial and had an option to bring dirt over, we figured we were kind of solving two problems. Now, we can't get all the dirt from the west, but we can take a big chunk out of it. We would still have to go find dirt from another site to bring it up everything we need.
Any other questions? And I just wanted to make sure I know you said it was, but I guess some folks had asked again. This is speculative. You said you think you have 2 people that are interested in, or have they signed?
No, so we have not, minus the public process, we have not talked to tenants or users at all. We have not announced this project. We don't have certainty of outcome. We don't know when we can deliver, when we can start, or if we can even do it here. Once we get approvals, we'll pick a third-party brokerage firm and market it. And it will take, call it 10 months roughly to build, and we'd have a lease-up schedule beyond that. And we'd go out, trying to chase these users and tenants. But we do not have anybody identified yet. And that's really why we have the cross-dock configuration. We have the nicer office corners. We do not know who's coming in here. We don't know the size, but we need to be prepared for 2 users, 1 user, 4 users, 5 users. And that's, again, what we're kind of preaching, the flexibility. We truly don't know. But, again, we've done a lot of this, and we think this product type, these dimensions work pretty well for this part of Kansas City. This is not, I'm sorry, this part of the city. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Be gentle. So, I mean, you're saying this is a difficult site. So, why this site? Why here? Why?
Again, we were kind of asked to look at it. The proximity to 70 is outstanding, among other interstates. The city was pro-development. We thought we had a willing land seller, and we thought we could solve this.
Okay.
We have gone through the incentive process, subject to planning, of course. But we think with our underwriting and what we've discovered, we can make this a viable option. And again, hopefully create momentum at this part of town.
And I'm not asking you to divulge all the details, but one question is what were the incentives? So I realize that projects like this usually have incentives. There may or may not be anything wrong with that, but that question was asked. So do you care to divulge any information?
Sure.
On that?
It is a public record. It's a 20-year tax abatement. On average, about 80% over the 20 years. It ramps up over time fairly quickly. It is a market rate and market tax abatement when you look across the MSA. Again, even with the tax abatement, it increases taxes over that 20-year period by $3 million.
Now, people, please, you've been very good. I want you to remain here, okay? Just let's have a civil meeting, please. So essentially, is it like a TIF district? Is that what
No,
we're
so the
talking
city is
about?
not backing these bonds whatsoever. It's a real estate tax payment that the seller or the owner would have to pay annually. It's a pass-through to the tenant as an operating expense. These are Chapter 100 bonds. I can't speak to the detail without bond counsel, but again, the city is not backing these or putting their bond rating at risk at all in this scenario versus a TIF or other incentives.
And so, since you were asked to do this, were you specifically asked to do this type of large warehouse cross-dock type operation, and not because this is the type of building that needs to go here to work?
We believe so, yes.
Okay, because
the larger we can build to a degree, the economies of scale and the flexibility come into play. Building smaller buildings is very expensive. It can work in certain scenarios. We don't do that. We don't believe we can chew through the dirt here and really create momentum with these smaller buildings. Again, we believe these two buildings or the third could create something pretty quick and be open for tenants and users very fast. And we can be very competitive across the landscape of the MSA. And there's a lot going on, but Kansas City as a whole has had a great success with this product type. And this is the similar product we see.
Okay. So, and you also mentioned that there might be other folks moving in. You weren't really sure how many tenants there'd be space for. Was that accurate? Did I hear that accurately?
Yeah, we don't know who's going in. We don't know the size yet. Again, we've teed these up to really carve them into 4 tenants. That makes a lot of sense. They each have their own entry. They have good parking. They do have some docks on one side of the building. We could have 1 tenant. We could have 2 tenants. We truly do not know.
Okay, so like there was a person, I don't know if they're still here or not, that was like a fireplace. Would they even be large enough to warrant having a space in there? And I'm assuming that because this is kind of a cross-dock thing, that's the way the buildings are going to be built. So when they're taking a space, are they taking a space where they've got 3 or 4 dock doors? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so the smaller, I know they're both big, the 230,000 square foot building, if we divided that into 4 quadrants, they'd all have an office entry and one side of dock doors. There'd be a demising wall down east-west and then north-south. So they would not have cross-dock functions in that scenario. But they'd be able to have a drive-in door, a couple dock doors potentially, and then some office. The way we would build these out is we would not build all those docks day one. There'd be maybe 24 on the smaller building and 32 on the first, divided between the 2 sides. We would have the ability to knock out additional doors if a client or user needed it, but we would try to limit what was built day one.
So if it's quadranted up, then in reality, there's only so many people that can, there's only so many businesses that can.
Yeah, there's still 60,000 square foot.
Because you're not going to stick
users.
somebody in the middle of
More
two
than
big-
likely, no.
Okay.
We have entertained adding an entrance down the middle. Now you're really introducing a mixture of auto and trailers together. But other examples, we've done that in the past.
Okay.
So it's not a showroom at all. It is more just warehouse, just in and out.
No, I mean, there could be, 10% office in one of these buildings divided by 4 or even through one user. It could be a granite showroom. It could be all sorts of things. We're working on another smaller deal, and it's a high-end lighting company. So they do bollards, they do street poles, they do chandeliers, and they will kind of manufacture or tinker with that, sell it out of the warehouse, and then have a showroom both inside and out of the building to show their customers. One wild example of what we kind of see.
FanTrust is obviously a large firm, correct?
Correct.
A lot of experience, correct?
Yes, sir.
Therefore, you have history on your side in terms of this type of scale in proximity to residential areas, correct?
To some degree, yes.
Given your resources, have you studied the impact of scale in proximity to neighborhoods?
We have not. In our experience with our developments, we have seen positive things in terms of new development in the immediate area. It's a large list of what those product types actually are. We are not residential single-family developers. I cannot speak to the values or implications. I totally understand the proximity. And again, we want to do everything we can.
Tell me about your experience the last time you built to this scale in proximity to residential areas? Your last experience, most one that you can most easily remember.
I don't personally have an experience in this part of the Midwest in the close proximity.
Well, New York, upstate New York.
I
Colorado.
in this area.
No, give me something about wherever you've built last, that you've built to this scale with such proximity to residential. Tell me about it.
I don't have a good example.
You've never built to this scale before?
We built a 700,000 square foot building in Olathe, Kansas. There was not residents near. We built a 500. We built a 140 in an infill site in Lenexa, Kansas. We built a 370,000 next to a 270,000 in Edwardsville, Kansas. And that is and then we have 150,000 square feet on the front door of Lawrence, Kansas in Venture Park with the city. That is our limit in Kansas City. We have a much bigger footprint nationally with industrial outside of those markets. And I'm confident I could find an example closer to a residential
Tell me about
community.
that 500,000 square foot warehouse.
We sold that to an owner-user to occupy 3/4 of the building, and then they took on the risk of leasing the rest of it. But that was an owner-user sale, manufacturing high-power systems.
Tell me about the proximity of residentials to that property.
This is off 167th Street and I-35 in Olathe, Kansas. More of an industrial park. There are farms, so single-family, but not this density.
In hindsight, would you propose this site in its current location?
We still believe in the project and what the product type could achieve. Again, I completely understand where we're at with proximity to neighbors. The zoning is different here. Again, we have some industrial use. We have the planned PUD residential use. I don't know when residential will fill this valley. I don't know when smaller buildings will either. I don't know when office will come. We do know and believe we can build this industrial here. And we
I
can do it
believe
very
you can
quickly.
build it. Could you build it north?
This site was offered for sale, and this is a site we've studied. And we,
That's not the question. Could you build it up north in the northern section of the valley?
I don't know that. I have not studied the northern part.
Would it be your recommendation to consider building it in another location?
We feel we are pioneering to some degree. We want the best opportunity to lease season. We want to be as close to I-70 as possible. And we really can't get any closer, and that's, again, why we like this site as well.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the commissioners? Okay. Thank you. Do you have anything else to say, just in case you do? I'm give you a chance.
Again, we appreciate everybody's time. We appreciate everybody's voice. We do want to be welcomed in communities. We don't do anything personal. We like building. We like developing. Our reputation is critical. We do what we promise and what we say we will do. And you can call any municipality. You can call neighbors. You can call companies. We stand behind that wherever we go. We're probably working in 50 communities across the country currently in different stages of development, whether it's land acquisition and entitlements, incentives, construction, and or leasing. But again, our word, we stand behind our word, and again, we believe in this project and hopefully can find a mutual solution that helps everybody.
Well, thank you. I will say just a small amount of research I did on the internet. You guys do seem to build good projects. They seem to be clean. I find nothing that I could say that was set against your company. So I believe that what you do when you build it, you stand behind what you say you're going to do, and that's great. So I do want to tell you that and that's what I'm just telling you. So what you said to us, I'm kind of reflecting back to you. We don't think you're just a fly-by-nighter company.
Thank you.
I think you're a quality company, okay? That's probably not the question here, is whether you'll build a good project. So I appreciate your input. Thank you very much. You gonna? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public portion of this case and ask the commissioners for any comments or...
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Typically, we have projects that we can digest and process and be deliberate, thoughtful, and reflect the good intentions of thoughtful thinking. The volume of information presented here tonight, the information that we have received via staff, I simply do not believe we can process it and be as deliberate as this body normally is. Therefore, I'm left with no recourse but to continue this matter, permit this commission time to study and be as thoughtful as we can be so that we do not have what we had happen the last time. Give an enthusiastic support and then have it tabled and not considered. Therefore, I'm going to move that we table this and give this commission time to consider.
Well, a motion has been made. Is there a second?
Before we go further, do you mean continue the application or
Continue.
table it?
Continue it. I stand corrected. Thank you.
To the November meeting.
To the November meeting.
Which is November 19th?
Yeah. November 19th.
So,
Before we entertain any kind of second or anything, what do you hope, what kind of information do you hope to get?
nobody will process what Mr. Pratt presented, what the staff has presented, what Mr. Lesnick presented, what all of these good people have presented, and then make an informed, intelligent decision that will reflect the thoughtfulness that this commission should do.
Okay, so basically it's time to digest the information. You're
Process.
not... Process. Better word. You're not, and you're not really, are you requiring any information from these other folks to help us make that decision, or you think they've given us enough?
I think there's additional information to be had. I don't know where it is, but if there's more, surely I'm sure staff will probably provide additional information. If you have that additional information in your back pocket, I'll accept it.
Well, I wish I did, but I have a very small back pocket. And I've seen everything that you've seen. So I just wanted to make sure that you were clear on what
No,
kind
I
of...
think the scale of the project, when we do deliberate, thoughtful consideration, this is a major project. This is not
Agreed.
A simple subdivision. This is major. This is going to impact a lot of people. Potential employment opportunities, potential negative impacts on citizens with residences in proximity. I think we can do a better job by taking time and being thoughtful.
Okay. All right, so Billy made a motion. Do we have a second?
I would rather, since we've got everybody here, because I think we still need it, we've got some questions we should ask, but I think they're more city-focused than to answer the residents' questions. But I just feel like we should vet it a little more while we've got them here, because we do need to know, we do need to ask these questions.
So are you proposing that he withdraw his motion for now?
Hang on it for a minute while we ask questions.
Well, I think we can. Well,
revisit it?
I did not mean that
Like-
we will terminate activities now. To the extent we can get additional information tonight, I'm all in favor of it.
Well, let's
think
go for that. And then if you still feel you need to make that motion, we'll revisit it. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I can do that.
Thank you. All right, since you've got all these burning questions, Cindy, go ahead.
Okay, I am still kind of hung up on, and I know we're probably not wanting to get in the weeds here, but I'm still kind of hung up on how the trucks get to I-70 through the traffic of the retail, restaurant, you know, to get through Salsa and Menards and the hospital traffic. That kind of worries me a little bit, and I just wonder how much insight the city has thought about that and projected what that looks like.
Get up here, Katie.
We just like having you up here, so.
We like your smile.
These are the
so.
questions.
Okay.
Okay, so that was actually one of our big concerns as well. We did require that the traffic study evaluate that corridor. With the traffic that would be generated, the study found that with the traffic that would be generated from these locations, it would have an impact on the corridor, but the study also found that some signal timing modifications could be implemented along the corridor to allow for longer green time to kind of clear it a little better. Simultaneously, the city has been in conversations with MoDOT on how the interchange at I-70 and Little Blue Parkway can be enhanced. And so MoDOT is considering how they can do that, and that would they've been looking at doing that over the next few years. They have not made any commitments yet, and there's nothing specific, but that is a conversation being had.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of important because we just approved the, well, I don't know if the city, we had said yes, but the city council may not have said yes about all the folks that are going to be down there by the Country Kitchen.
Yes.
So we got that traffic, and then this goes in, and then other things come in. So it's already, it already gets crazy sometimes.
Yes, and the city did, I mean, this is definitely a long-term plan, but when we did construct Little Blue Parkway, that section from 39th to I-70 was acquired with the thought that we would eventually add an additional lane, so there is sufficient right-of-way for it. It's just a matter of developing that project, so.
Are you thinking, or do you have another question?
Well,
Okay. You can think, that's fine.
I drive that way a lot, and, you know, I'm still trying to just wrap my head around what that would look like. And I just want us to really, I mean, I feel like we are really on a good track of really thinking clearly about what we want independence to look like, and that we do, because I'm sitting here looking at this that says independence for all and kind of our objectives, and trying to keep that in my head at the same time. And just thinking about my own traffic pattern, because that's my nice shortcut, actually, to get to that side, because my parents are in the hospital quite a bit, and my grandson plays soccer on the other side. So I do go that way a lot, as probably everybody else does. So I'm just trying to imagine what it's like with semis on it, and I'm not there yet. So we got to keep talking.
Okay. There was one question about whether this would operate, if it's common for these facilities to operate 24 hours a day.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you don't know that, unless you do. Do you know that?
I would not be able to answer that question, I'm sorry.
I gave you a chance.
This is not traffic, but the parking of trucks.
Yes.
When they arrive, if the docks facility is not ready, or what happens? Is there a retention pond for the trucks?
That would be a question to ask the developer about how those interactions occur on that property.
Will the developer please come back to the podium? He's got a couple questions sorry, we forgot to ask you. Gee, thanks. Why don't you ask the mic? There was a question about operating 24 hours a day. I realize that some probably do and some don't. About where the trucks stack while they're waiting. I realize that happens sometimes. I drive through a business park place. has a few warehouses over in Lee Summit, and they just made the street extra wide, so if these trucks need to park on the street, they do, and traffic can still go around them. Not that there's much, but has there been any, plans made for that? And then there's a question about the bike path, but please go ahead and answer.
So in the
Judge.
hours of operation, it is completely tied to that user. We have seen a wide variety. In my experience, I've not seen 24-hour a day operations. Now there are different shifts sometimes, but we have not seen that here.
So normal working hours would be from when to when?
7 to 5.
Okay. Now, please.
So there's going to be different functions within the buildings. There will be an office component, and that will be traditional hours more likely. Now there will be drop-offs and deliveries. I don't know when they do that because I don't know their operations yet.
Sure. And as far as the trucks, the retention pond for the trucks?
So our kind of outer loops within the development for circulation could be stacking components. Those are about 30 feet wide. The throat kind of coming into the site would give some alleviation to that. Again, without knowing exactly who's in there, I would not foresee a situation where every dock position is taken and the trailer storage is taken and that we have backups. But again, that is speculation.
Okay. All right. Could you ask your question while he's up here, please?
Yeah, well, it's really almost a city question.
Well, ask him if he wants to
Okay,
defer to the
I
city,
will.
and we'll do that.
The question was about the cycling traffic. And because we do have the little blue bike trail, walking trail right there that we've worked years to develop, and I just don't know how this will affect that. Because it is a worry. There are a lot of cyclists along there. Again, it goes to traffic, but.
I would defer to staff. Obviously, when we introduce those curb cuts on the Little Blue and tie into Jackson, we will have to be very safe when we do that. And I don't know the procedures in place to make that delineation.
City? Katie?
So this corridor was developed with the concept of facilitating bike and pedestrian traffic with the future intended use. So that is why we do have sidewalks available. We have bike facilities available, or multi-use trails available along these corridors. And then if you're for the kind of high use cyclists, the shoulders on Little Blue Parkway are very wide. I personally cycle on them and use them comfortably, and that really is geared towards those high, more users, the people who kind of go a lot faster, whatnot. Then we have the sidewalks and multi-use trails available so that individuals who feel less comfortable on the roadway will be able to feel more comfortable traveling and then be able to cross at the signalized intersections as well.
Those sidewalks, how wide are they?
I do not know that off the top of my head.
Isn't a bike cyclist walkway usually 6, 7, 8 feet wide?
The minimum width for bike lanes are 6 feet. These are shoulders, so they're a little bit more variable.
Well, you mentioned something about
And
the
then-
sidewalks. I
and
was
then
asking about the sidewalks.
Sidewalks are, our standards have shifted over the last few years. I don't know when that took place, which is why I'm not quite sure when, what that width is specifically.
What was the old standard?
The old standard was 4 feet. It's now 5 feet. And multi-use paths are usually between 8 and 10 feet.
Okay. Any more questions about that? Any more questions about that?
I don't think so.
Okay. I do, thank you, Katie. What's the relationship of Van Trust to the people that occupy? Are you leasing it, the space, to them?
Yes, sir. So we would own the project and the building. We would lease it back to the tenants.
Okay, so I think one of the other questions that would fall into your purview, had a question about, if somebody, I'm sure you only allow reputable companies to, use your facilities, but if something contraband or something like that is in there, or human trafficking or whatever you want to call it occurs, and you find out, what do you do?
Well, hopefully that will not occur in our facility. If they're doing illegal activities, we'll find out through our management company and asset management group, and we would enforce the law and try to correct that, or would correct that immediately. And that'd probably be in default of their leases.
Okay, and so you provide security for your sites, or do you hire a security company?
So we'd have property management patrolling. It'd really be upon the tenant and the user on implementing security cameras. A lot of these facilities would be fenced potentially, depending on how many users are in the building and maintaining circulation. But third-party security, it would be on the tenant, unless it's a policy over all buildings, and every user, opted into that.
What's the lighting look like at night? How high, how high impact is it?
So there'll all be LED lighting, wall-mounted packs against the building, and then poles. We submitted a photometric to the city to meet city code requirements. I don't know exactly each point within that, though.
Okay, so you have submitted that plan? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You guys tired, or you got more questions, or what? I mean, this is your opportunity.
There was one question that I accidentally shorthanded, and I don't understand my own writing, so I don't know if anybody else does, but there was a question about how many provisions were made in the overlay or something to that effect.
Yeah, there was concessions. Somebody said that something was made, somebody made a remark, and I don't know if it's Mr. Pratt or there was concessions made. It's probably Mr. Pratt.
Concessions, not provisions.
Sorry, I told you I shorthanded it.
Concessions that were made to the overlay plan, existing overlay plan, that were made so that this could go in. Do you know
I do
what
not
I'm talking
know.
about?
No, I would need to defer to staff.
Well, you're about ready to get an answer. It may not satisfy you, but you're going to get an answer.
Jordan Alina, Development Manager. So Mr. Pratt made reference to the Parkway Overlay District and those restrictions. So the Parkway Overlay District is an overlay district that exists in the plan as a overlay district that could be implemented if created through the zoning map amendment process. It's never been implemented along Little Blue Parkway or anywhere else in the city for that matter. So no restrictions that are outlined in the UDO pertaining to Parkway Overlay District pertain to this project, as there is no overlay, Parkway Overlay District.
So it's just a suggestion.
It's suggested in the plan as something that could be implemented in the future. It just hasn't been implemented.
And that's part of the master plan, right?
Exactly.
That we adopted.
That we adopted, but have never implemented.
Okay, well, well.
So is this the...
So you're saying that possibly we made a mistake, that we shouldn't have adopted it? See what I mean? Because we looked over the plan and we thought that was a good idea. So I
can't speak to the history of when the UDO was developed.
That was just a rhetorical question.
Okay, great.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
Right? Is that what-
Yeah,
is that
okay.
better?
Okay, is there any other questions of city staff? Anything else?
I feel like I've asked my quota.
Okay, so you're done. Billy? You still thinking?
No, still
Okay, hold on.
reading.
You okay? You all right?
Good.
Okay. Well, we're going to revisit that motion. Mr. Preston?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm not gonna, okay.
in light of the volume of information received here tonight that's been presented both orally and in print, and in light of the significant number of residents, I think it would be prudent for this body to pause, review all the information in hand, and be as deliberate as it has been historically. Therefore, I move to continue this matter to the November meeting, whereby we would have had time to consider all of this information and any other information that may be pertinent. Thank you.
Okay, a motion has been made. Is there a second?
I second.
Oh, you're funny, man. Well, Billy, I'm sorry to tell you, I think your motion just died for lack of a second. So,
Perhaps I should take another 20 minutes and make another motion.
well, it's your prerogative as the commissioner.
Is that a filibuster, Mr. Chair?
Billy, I wouldn't do that to you. If you got something, more questions, let's ask them. Let's do this.
I think I want to embark upon a 1-hour speech.
Well, while you're talking, the rest of us are going to act like the Senate, and we're all going to leave. And then we'll come back in when you're done, okay?
I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments that anybody would like to make, or motions other than the one that just died? Public portion is closed, sir. Well, guys, I don't want to sit here all night,
Okay,
so somebody do something.
I'll make a comment,
Okay, make a comment, thank you.
just because I haven't asked enough questions. Or, so, I am looking at this Independence for All sheet that we have up here so that we can kind of stay focused on what the Independence for All vision and strategic thing. And so as you were all talking, and I mean all, I put like a little circle around, there's improved customer objectives, improve customer service, communicate more effectively internally and externally. There's a bunch of them, but I put a dot by improve customer service, control long-term costs, improve visual appearance, increase perception of safety, stabilize and revitalize neighborhoods. And so out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 objectives, that's 5 that I think are pretty important to really keep focused on how we feel like Independence should progress. I mean, I just feel like, you know, as a planning commission, short-sightedness is not a good look for us. And I don't want to make a bad decision because I think the Van Trust project is a cool project, but I do kind of feel like it could be on somewhere else than right in these people's front, back, and side yards. I don't know. That's just, I just keep looking at this and it just isn't, it is failing on some of the objectives.
I agree. This is really hard for me because I really want jobs and independence. It's a real priority for me. It's one of the reasons I wanted to be on the Planning Commission because I thought I could affect that. And I know we need that in this town.
Yeah.
And so I think this is a great project, and I do think it would add jobs. But I'm concerned about everything that was talked about tonight, and so it's hard. This is hard. I mean, I agree.
That's why you get paid the big bucks you get paid for serving on this commission, which is exactly why I propose continuing this matter, because clearly you are thoughtful people and we're missing information here. I know that a lot of thought, a lot of hard work has gone into this project. But at this point, this project is not making good sense. Therefore, I am clearly missing something. Therefore, it is reasonable and thoughtful that we take the time to gather the additional information that we are currently missing. And clearly we're missing information here. Therefore, I move that we continue this to the November 19th date. And I thank you for your second and your second, because that's exactly what you just did.
So would we have another, how would that work, though? Would we have another public hearing? I guess that's my question.
I think we need a study group where we can sit down and thoughtfully and discuss this and consider the information before us, the thoughtful words presented to us, and any other information that will be potentially available. Because clearly, there's additional information. I refuse to believe that a project of this scale would be presented and we are so missing something here. We're missing something, guys. I know what you're inclined to do. You're inclined to say no. You want to say yes. And you're agonizing. I'm not. Because I know there's missing information. Get the information, make an informed decision. You do not have sufficient information here tonight. Do I get a second here?
Well, is there a second again?
I second. Right?
You're so persuasive, sir.
No, this is reasonable behavior.
We still have to
I
vote.
don't know how we're going to get this information. I have yet to understand how we're going to get more.
I'm an investigator. I spent more than 20 years as a federal investigator. I know that there's additional information to be had. It's just not before us.
Please, the public hearing portion is closed. I don't want to clear this out. I think you guys need to sit here and listen quietly, please.
Anyway, I yield back to you, Mr. Chair. We have a motion. We have a second. Thank you, sir.
I want to know how we're going to get more information. I want to know how we're going to do that. How are we going to do that?
Potentially, the commission could provide staff with a list of questions for the applicant. The applicant could pass that on to, we could pass it on to the applicant, let him respond in writing, and then we could provide that at the next meeting. And then it could be discussed at that time. And as far as a public hearing, it's really closed, so it would be just a discussion among the members of the commission.
I am certain that there is city staff somewhere with information that we do not have that will shed a sufficiency of light that would be illuminating for us.
We would need, again, some more information about what the commission was looking for, wanting to know about.
I mean, ask your questions. What are you looking for?
If I knew, I would be able to make an informed decision.
Well, that's a conundrum, isn't it?
Yeah. So we're looking for information. What is the information? That's why you have investigators.
Sure.
That's why there's an investigative process.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a vote. Can you state what we're voting on again? I mean, I know what we're voting on, but I was asked. Because.
Do you want me to repeat?
No, I know.
We're voting on the
Well, you know,
motion
okay.
to
So
continue,
I guess she
right?
knows. Okay, so go ahead and take the vote.
Okay. Commissioner Ferguson,
No.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner McLean,
No.
Commissioner Ashball.
No. I'm sorry, Bill. I think this whole thing revolves around a huge building that people can look down on, and they don't want that, and I can't blame them. I think it's a great project in the wrong spot. So I don't see why getting any more information would really help us, and I don't know.
So the motion failed. Are you ready? Someone ready to make another motion?
Right, let's vote.
We did vote.
Yes, the motion failed. Thank you. I can always count on you, man. Thanks. So that I'm just explaining why. Okay, So that's my 2 cents. Anybody else have something to say before we have a motion to vote?
No, we're good.
Okay. So I need a motion to vote.
Okay, I'm sorry. There's a lot of papers up here. This one, right?
That's the one.
Okay. I move to approve case number 19-125-02, rezoning and preliminary development plan, Independence Commerce Center, 2700-2800 South Little Blue Parkway, Van Trust Real Estate. Can I stop there, or do I need to keep going?
There's no conditions.
Okay, cool. So, I move to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank God. Okay. So, we're going to take a vote on this. And folks, I'm going to tell you right now, this is not the final decision. Okay, whether we vote it yes or no, it goes to city council. So, if you feel this passionately, you need to go to that city council meeting. Okay? All right, let's take the vote.
Commissioner Ferguson,
No.
Commissioner Preston,
In light of the position I took in December, where I recused myself based upon the recommendations of city staff, I will again recuse myself.
okay. Commissioner Wiley,
No.
okay. Commissioner McLean,
No.
and Chairman Ashbaugh.
No. Case number, give me that. Sorry. Case number 19-125-02, rezoning and preliminary plat development, Independence Commerce Center at 2700 and 2800 South Little Blue Parkway has been not recommended. Okay. All right, so
So we're not doing.
So is there any other information? I know we do the minutes, but is there any other information we need to know about? Is there anything city staff wants to share with us?
Well, yeah, if you're going to continue the
Oh, the UDF.
short-term rental,
That's right, okay.
you need to do that.
All right, so, sorry. Thank you.
We need a motion.
So we need a motion for case number 19-17504. We decided to
Do we have a
continue.
recommended date?
Well, it'd be November 19th,
19th.
the
Mr.
next
Chair,
meeting.
Yes.
in a matter of case number 19-175-04, Unified Development Ordinance Amendment relevant to short-term rentals, I move that we continue that case to November 19th.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. Let's have the vote.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ferguson,
Yes.
Commissioner McLean,
Yes.
Chairman Ashbaugh.
Yes. Case number 19-17504, Unified Development Ordinance, has been continued till next meeting. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes?
Yeah, there was a minor typo, and I forgot to write it down.
She announced it before we.
Have to run through spell check and find it. Well, maybe they spell it New Orleans differently. I don't know.
Find the minutes. I don't even know where they are.
I think if
I'm
Billy
sure
finds
staff
that, he will.
review it and find it.
Yeah, if he finds it, he'll share that with you. Otherwise, the minutes stand approved as written. Okay. Any commissioners have anything to share with the city staff? You guys have nothing to share with us, right? Good answer. We stand adjourned at 9:44 p.m.